They expect a princess, ceremony, comfort, protection. But for 73 hours, none of that exists. No titles, no shortcuts, no safety net, just endurance. And Princess Leonor is in the middle of it. This is not the kind of challenge people imagine when they think of royalty. There are no balconies here. No applause. No carefully framed photographs. There is only exhaustion, discipline, and a clock that does not stop moving. For 73 hours, Princess Leonor faces Spain's toughest military test. And the question is not whether she can pass. The real question is what it will take from her. Because this challenge is not designed to train a princess. It is designed to break assumptions. From the very beginning, Leonor knows something important. This is not symbolic. It is not ceremonial. And it is not adjusted for who she is. She enters the same conditions as everyone else. The same weight. The same rules, the same expectations, and once it begins, there is no pause button. The first hours are deceptive. The body still holds energy. The mind still believes it can negotiate with fatigue. Muscles respond. Focus remains sharp. This is when most people underestimate what is coming. Leonor does not. She has been trained to understand that the real test begins when confidence fades. Because this challenge is not about strength alone. It is about decision-making under pressure, emotional control under stress, discipline when comfort is no longer available. 73 hours without normal rest changes everything. Sleep becomes fragments, thoughts blur, time stretches and collapses at the same time. And this is where the weight of her position becomes impossible to ignore. Because Leonor is not just enduring this for herself. Every step she takes here echoes far beyond the training ground. She knows that Spain is not watching the details. It is watching the outcome. Not whether she looks strong, but whether she proves she belongs. The military has its own language. Respect is not granted by name or future rank. It is earned through performance. And here, performance means persistence. There are moments early on when the mind tries to bargain. Just get through the next hour. Just complete the next task. Just don't fall behind. Leonor learns to think in segments, not totals. Because thinking about 73 hours all at once is overwhelming. This is where her preparation shows. She does not dramatize the moment. She does not seek attention. She focuses on the process. And that focus is what carries her forward. As fatigue deepens, the challenge becomes less physical and more psychological. Hunger sharpens irritation. Lack of sleep magnifies doubt. Simple tasks demand intense concentration. This is where people reveal who they are. Some grow impatient. Some withdraw. Some become reactive. Leonor becomes quieter. Not because she is weak, but because she understands that energy must be conserved. Words matter more when exhaustion strips away filters. And silence becomes a form of control. There is no special treatment here. Instructions are brief. Corrections are direct. Mistakes are not softened. And Leonor receives them the same way as everyone else. Without protest. Without explanation. That alone sends a message. To instructors. To peers. To an institution built on hierarchy and accountability. She is not here to be protected. She is here to be tested. As the hours pass, the body begins to fail in small ways. Reactions slow. Muscles stiffen. Focus drifts. This is where leadership potential becomes visible. Not in giving orders, but in maintaining composure. Leonor does not need to assert authority. She does not need to stand out. She leads by not collapsing. By staying steady when others struggle. By continuing when rest feels impossible. By refusing to let discomfort become an excuse. This is not heroic in a cinematic sense. It is quiet. And that quiet endurance is what the military values most. At some point, time loses meaning. Night blends into day. Day into night. The challenge no longer feels like an event. It feels like a state of being. This is when doubt creeps in. Not dramatic doubt. Practical doubt. Can the body keep going? Can the mind stay sharp enough? Can discipline outlast fatigue? Leonor has been prepared for this question long before she arrived here. Because her life has trained her to carry weight without complaint. The crown has taught her restraint. The military demands it. And for once, those two worlds align. Still, there are moments when the human cost surfaces. Brief flashes of vulnerability. Heavy breaths. the visible effort of staying present. These moments are not failures. They are proof. Proof that she is experiencing the same strain as everyone else. And that makes what comes next meaningful. Because she does not stop. She adjusts. She slows where needed, focuses where required, pushes when there is no alternative. This adaptability matters. It shows that she understands leadership is not about dominance. It is about endurance and judgment. As the final stretch approaches, the pressure changes again. Now it is not just about surviving. It is about finishing with integrity. Fatigue tempts shortcuts. Exhaustion invites carelessness. This is where discipline becomes most visible. Leonor remains deliberate, not perfect, but controlled. And that control is what the test is truly measuring. By the time the 73 hours end, there is no celebration. No dramatic conclusion, just relief, and exhaustion, and the quiet realization that something irreversible has happened. Because after this, she is no longer seen the same way. Not by the military, not by the institution, and not by herself. This challenge does not turn Leonor into a soldier. It confirms something more important. That she can endure environments designed to strip away comfort, privilege, and certainty. That she can function under sustained pressure. That she can finish what she begins, even when the cost is high. For Spain, this matters deeply. Because the role she is preparing for is not symbolic strength. It is symbolic resilience. A future commander-in-chief cannot be perceived as distant from sacrifice. This challenge bridges that gap. It places Leonor inside the system she will one day represent, not above it, and that earns respect. But there is another layer to this story. Family. While Leonor faces this challenge, her parents do not intervene. They do not comment. They do not soften the experience. That silence is intentional. It reflects trust. Trust in her preparation. Trust in her resolve. Trust that she must pass through difficulty without rescue. That kind of trust is not easy. It requires allowing someone you love to struggle publicly and privately. And it reveals the seriousness with which her future is being shaped. When Leonor emerges from this challenge, she does not speak about it in emotional terms. She does not dramatize the experience. That restraint is consistent. Because this was never about proving toughness to the public. It was about meeting an internal standard. And that standard has been met. The 73 hours are over. But their impact remains. They will follow her into future training, future responsibilities, future leadership. Because now, when pressure arrives, she knows she has endured worse. That knowledge cannot be taught. It must be lived. Princess Leonor's toughest military challenge was never about testing her limits. It was about showing her where they truly are. And as Spain looks at her now, it does not see a princess who endured hardship for appearances. It sees a future leader who understands that authority is earned through endurance, not inherited through name. For 73 hours, she was not defined by the crown she will one day wear. She was defined by what she could withstand. And that changes everything. What follows after the 73 hours is quieter, but heavier. Because once the test ends, reflection begins. The body recovers faster than the mind. Muscles heal. Sleep returns. But the awareness stays. The awareness of what it feels like to be pushed beyond comfort with no escape. Leonor carries that awareness forward. Not as pride, as reference. From this point on, every future challenge will be measured against those hours. Every demanding day will be framed by a simple truth. She has already endured when quitting was reasonable. That changes how pressure is processed. It builds a kind of internal calm. Not confidence born from applause, but confidence built from experience. And that is rare. For someone raised in privilege, this experience reshapes identity. It strips away the illusion that authority comes from position alone. It replaces it with understanding. Understanding that leadership requires presence in discomfort. That respect is earned through shared hardship. That credibility cannot be inherited. Leonor does not emerge louder after this challenge. She emerges steadier. Those around her notice it first. Instructors, peers, command structures. They see someone who does not rush to prove herself. Someone who does not need validation. Someone who understands process. That understanding matters more than strength. Because the military is not impressed by symbolism. It respects reliability. And reliability is what Leonor demonstrates. For Spain, this test carries symbolic weight beyond the training ground. It reassures an institution built on hierarchy that its future figurehead understands discipline from the inside. It reassures citizens that preparation is real, not performative. And it reassures the monarchy itself that its long strategy is working. But reassurance does not erase pressure. If anything, it increases it. Because now expectations rise. Once someone proves they can endure, they are expected to endure again. And Leonor knows this. Her future will bring moments far more complex than 73 hours of physical and mental strain. Moments of political tension, national grief, institutional crisis. This challenge does not prepare her for everything. But it prepares her to remain functional when everything feels heavy. And that is the point. Still, there is a human cost that remains unspoken. Exhaustion changes perspective. It reveals vulnerabilities that discipline usually hides. During those hours, Leonor would have faced thoughts she rarely allows herself to dwell on. Questions about limits, about identity, about choice. Because when the body is pushed to its edge, the mind becomes honest. And honesty can be unsettling. She cannot share those moments publicly. She never will. But they shape her quietly. They add depth to her seriousness, weight to her restraint, meaning to her silence. That silence, after the challenge, feels different. It is no longer just controlled. It is informed. She knows what it means to be stripped of comfort. She knows how fragile focus can be. She knows how quickly authority disappears when effort falters. That knowledge humbles. And humility is essential for someone who will one day symbolize command. Leonor does not leave the challenge with the illusion of invincibility. She leaves with respect for limits. And respect for limits is what keeps leaders grounded. As her training continues, this experience becomes a foundation. Not something she references aloud, but something she draws from instinctively. When schedules tighten, when demands increase, when expectations collide, she has a baseline now. She knows she can remain composed when fatigue speaks louder than logic. She knows she can finish even when motivation fades. That certainty is quiet power. The monarchy understands the value of this. That is why these challenges are not hidden. They are not advertised loudly, but they are allowed to be known. Because the message matters. Not that she is extraordinary, but that she is prepared to be ordinary within extraordinary pressure. That distinction matters deeply. Royalty has often been criticized for distance. This experience closes that distance. Not through spectacle, but through shared standards. Leonor is held to the same expectations. She meets them, and that earns trust. Yet trust is not static. It must be reinforced over time. This challenge is not a conclusion. It is a chapter, one that will be referenced internally, even if rarely mentioned publicly. When decisions become difficult, when expectations grow heavier, when the crown demands more than comfort, this moment will be remembered. Not as a story, but as proof. Proof that when stripped of protection, she did not retreat. She adapted, she endured, and she finished. As Spain continues to watch her path, this experience becomes part of how she is understood. Not as a symbol of toughness, but as a symbol of preparedness. Preparedness to face discomfort without spectacle. Preparedness to endure pressure without complaint. Preparedness to lead without needing to announce it. The 73 hours are over. But their influence stretches forward. Into future training, future responsibilities, future crises. Because when leadership arrives, it rarely announces itself gently. It demands resilience first. Princess Leonor has now met that demand once. And Spain knows she will be asked to meet it again. That is why this challenge matters. Not because it was extreme, but because it was real. And because she faced it without stepping out of it. For 73 hours, there was no crown to rely on. Only endurance. And that endurance now stands quietly behind every step she takes forward.
Blood, crown, and sisterhood, Spain's most influential royal pair. Spain expects a queen, a kingdom expects perfection, but no one expected this. Two sisters, one throne, one future, and a bond stronger than the crown. Everyone thought the story was simple, until the truth broke through the palace walls. Because the real power in Spain isn't one girl, it's two. Spain has always known monarchs. Kings who commanded armies. Queens who shaped empires. Dynasties that rose and fell with the turning of history's wheel. But every once in a generation, something different emerges, something rare, something powerful, something that doesn't fit the usual pattern of royal succession. And in Spain today, that force takes the form of two young women who share the same blood, the same home, the same childhood, and yet carry two very different destinies. Princess Leonor, Infanta Sofia, the future queen, and the sister who stands beside her. Their story is not just royal. It's human, it's emotional, and it's unfolding right now, shaping the future of Spain in ways few people truly understand. From the outside, the world sees polished images. Two sisters smiling at official events. Perfect posture, perfect dresses, perfect harmony. But behind all the ceremony, the rehearsed gestures, the carefully managed public moments, there is a deeper truth, one built on years of shared rooms, whispered conversations, childhood secrets, and a bond that the crown cannot break. Because while Leonor is the heir, destined to rule, Sofia is the anchor, the quiet force that holds her sister's world together. But how did this bond form? Why is it so strong? And how did two teenagers become the most influential royal pair Spain has seen in decades? To understand that, we have to go back to the beginning. Leonor was born into expectation. The first daughter of a future king. Cameras flashed before she could even open her eyes. Every step she took would be measured. Every choice she made would matter. Hers was not a childhood, it was preparation. But Sofia, she arrived with a different destiny. No pressure to rule, no throne waiting for her. And that freedom, that lightness, made her something magical in her sister's life. From their earliest years, Leonor followed duty. Sofia followed her, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. When Leonor stood on balconies, terrified of the sea of faces below, Sofia squeezed her hand. When Leonor rehearsed her first speeches, trembling, Sofia sat beside her, whispering encouragement. When Leonor learned the weight of responsibility, Sofia learned how to carry the emotional load with her. Two sisters, two roles, one heartbeat. As they grew older, the world started to place them into categories. The heir, the spare, but those titles were meaningless inside the palace walls. To Leonor, Sofia wasn't the spare, she was the safe place. The one person who didn't want anything from her except honesty. And to Sofia, Leonor wasn't a future queen, she was the girl she grew up making midnight jokes with, the girl who shared her fears, the girl she protected in silence. And while their parents, King Felipe and Queen Letizia, built an image of unity, it was Leonor and Sofia who lived it every day. The first time Leonor realized the full weight of her future was not the day she received her title, nor the day she started her training. It was the day she saw how people reacted to her sister. Sofia had a natural light, a calm presence, something warm and unforced. People gravitated toward her, and Leonor, so controlled, so carefully shaped, envied that without ever admitting it. But Sofia saw it, she always saw it. There were nights when the palace grew quiet, when cameras were gone, when protocols were forgotten. Those were the moments Sofia would sneak into Leonor's room and ask only one question, "Are you okay?" And every time, Leonor would breathe out, as if releasing the whole kingdom from her shoulders. Because being a future queen means carrying the weight of millions. But being a sister means carrying the weight of one. As their teens approached, the world began to shift. Political debates grew louder. Social media magnified every gesture they made. Spain needed stability, and began looking toward Leonor. Her speeches strengthened. Her presence grew. She began to embody the future the monarchy desperately needed. But the confidence people saw was only half the truth. Because behind every public success was Sofia. When Leonor prepared for international training, Sofia was the one who helped her pack. When Leonor struggled with the pressure of public expectations, Sofia listened. When Leonor doubted herself, Sofia pushed her forward. Not by force, by love, and something remarkable began to happen. Instead of competing, instead of drifting apart as their roles became more defined, they grew closer. Stronger, more unified, because they understood something most royal siblings never do, that the world would try to divide them. Compare them, rank them, and they refused. Their dynamic became a new model for modern royalty. A partnership, not for power, but for stability. A unity that the people could trust. A sisterhood that felt genuine, unpolished, and human in a world of rigid formality. And Spain noticed. Suddenly interviews spoke of the sisters, not the heir. Public interest began focusing not just on Leonor's future, but on Sophia's presence, her calmness, her intelligence, her quiet influence. People realized she was not a background figure. She was part of the story, part of the strength of the crown. Because a queen stands tallest when she does not stand alone. As Leonor stepped deeper into her military training, the world saw a young woman transforming into a leader. But what they didn't see were the messages between her and Sophia. The late-night calls, the shared jokes, the emotional support, the reminders that even the future queen was still a teenager, still human, still someone who needed her sister. And Sophia, in her own way, grew into something equally powerful, a symbol of balance. Of humanity, of the part of the monarchy that feels accessible and real. The public didn't choose between them. They embraced them both, a duo, a partnership, a living story of what royalty can look like in the modern era. But here is the curiosity: the more Leonor rose, the more Spain began to notice something extraordinary. Sophia wasn't fading. She was rising too, not in power, not in authority, but in influence. Influence built not through speeches or titles, but through authenticity. And that created a new question, one the world is only beginning to explore. What happens when a future queen and her sister become equally essential to the image of the monarchy? Because Leonor may inherit the crown, but Sophia shapes the heart of the nation. This is not a rivalry. This is not competition. This is evolution. The crown represents strength. The bloodline represents continuity. But their sisterhood, that represents the future. Together they bridge tradition and modernity, duty and humanity, expectation and authenticity. And in a world where monarchies survive not by power, but by connection, this is their greatest weapon. Two sisters, two roles, one destiny intertwined. Leonor will lead Spain with the authority of a queen. Sophia will support Spain with the sincerity of a sister. And the people, they're beginning to understand something profound. Spain's future isn't built on one royal woman, but on two: blood, crown, sisterhood, a force no throne can create, and no kingdom can ignore. Heirs of destiny, Leonor and Sophia. Everyone thinks they know Spain's future. Everyone assumes the crown will follow a straight line. But suddenly, everything shifted. Because behind the polished royal gates, two sisters rewrote the meaning of destiny. And the world never saw it coming. From the very beginning, the story of Princess Leonor and Infanta Sofia was never just about birth order. It was about the unspoken bond of two girls raised under the weight of a crown, one destined to wear it, the other destined to protect the one who will. The value of their journey reveals itself immediately. Two daughters growing up in the most observed family in Spain. Two hearts shaped by pressure, tradition, and the constant reminder that their lives, every movement, every word, would echo through history. Leonor, the elder, stepped first into the spotlight. Her early speeches, small and nervous at first, became symbols of a changing monarchy. Spain saw her grow from a quiet child into a young woman whose voice carried both discipline and emotion. But behind that transformation was someone equally important: Sophia. Because while the world watched Leonor, Sophia watched something else: the cost. This is where the first curiosity opens. How do you grow up knowing your sister's life will be carved by duty, while yours is shaped by service to her? And why, despite the imbalance, does their bond seem stronger than most siblings? To understand that, we need to return to their childhood. They were raised not in isolation, but in a home where Queen Letizia emphasized unity. She taught them that royalty is not a privilege, it's a responsibility. She made them read, debate, discuss history, ethics, and the real struggles their country faced. And King Felipe guided them with quiet discipline, shaping them into young women who understood that the world was bigger than their palace. Leonor was trained earlier, yes. But Sophia was trained alongside her, not as a shadow, but as a mirror. A confidant, a partner in every step of an unpredictable future. Here's where another curiosity loop forms. Why does Spain increasingly see Sophia as the silent power beside the throne? And how does this change the monarchy's future? The answer lies in the moments the public rarely sees. The late-night study sessions at Zarzuela. The shared notebooks from their school years. The way Leonor looks at Sophia before every major appearance, grounding herself with her sister's presence. These moments reveal something deeper. Sophia isn't just accompanying her sister. She's reinforcing her. When Leonor attended the military academies, Spain watched her march, endure, and rise. But what they didn't see was the fierce encouragement from Sofia each time the crown princess doubted herself. It was Sofia who reminded her of the legacy she was born into. It was Sofia who made her laugh on days when training left bruises both visible and invisible. Their bond became a force, subtle, powerful, and unbreakable. Then came the turning point. Public appearances began showing something unexpected, a shift in dynamic. Sofia wasn't just the younger sister. She became the calm anchor in every official scene, a future national figure in her own right. So we ask another question. What role will Sofia play in the monarchy's next era? And how does Leonor feel knowing her reign depends not only on her strength, but on her sister's loyalty? The truth is emotional and real. Leonor trusts Sofia in ways no one else can replicate. She leans on her, not as a queen in training, but as a sister who knows her fears, her doubts, and her quiet dreams. In Sofia, she accepts the role not with jealousy, but with pride. She understands that the crown cannot survive without unity. And unity begins with them. Their adolescence became a turning point. At school, they defended each other. At home, they shared secrets about the pressure that came with expectations. They built a private world, a sanctuary where they could escape the weight of history, even if only for a moment. By the time Leonor completed her first major speeches and national duties, Spain began to notice the pattern. Where Leonor went, Sofia followed. Where Sofia stood, Leonor found steadiness. Then came the moment that sealed public opinion. Their appearance together at the Princess of Asturias Awards. Leonor spoke with power and clarity, but Sofia's presence beside her, poised, confident, protective, became one of the most defining images of the modern monarchy. It was then that Spain realized. Leonor may be the future queen, but Sofia is the guardian of that future. This evolving partnership draws comparisons to other historic royal pairs, but none truly match it. Because this story isn't about rivalry. It's about harmony, not competition, complement, not supremacy, support. Another curiosity loop emerges. What happens when Leonor ascends the throne? Will Sofia remain in the background? Or will she transform into a public figure with her own national influence? Evidence already points to the second. Sofia has grown more comfortable in public roles. She's found her voice. She's developed her own style of presence, calm, warm, steady. And experts believe she may take on roles tied to education, culture, youth leadership, or humanitarian causes. Not as a mere royal representative, but as one of Spain's most influential future women. As Leonor moves closer to leadership, another emotional shift appears. She begins embracing her destiny not with fear, but with determination. And that determination is fueled by knowing she is not alone. Their bond creates a unique dynamic. One sister preparing to carry a crown, the other preparing to protect the one who wears it. Together, they symbolize the monarchy Spain will rely on, modern, united, emotionally intelligent. As they step further into adulthood, their roles become clearer, but their bond becomes even deeper. The pressures grow stronger, the expectations grow heavier, but their unity becomes the monarchy's greatest strength. And so we land on the final question of this journey. What truly makes Leonor and Sofia the heirs of destiny? It's not titles. It's not bloodlines. It's not ceremonies, or photos, or grand speeches. It's the love between them. The loyalty. The quiet promises made when no cameras are present. The shared understanding that destiny is not carried alone, it is carried together. Two sisters. Two futures intertwined. Two hearts shaped by the same destiny. Spain watches them, not because they are royalty, but because they are a reminder that leadership begins not with power, but with family. This is their story. Their journey, their destiny, and the world is only beginning to understand what these two sisters will become.
Applause, and Leonor's laughter filled the hall. For that brief moment, she wasn't the future queen. She was just Leonor, a young woman enjoying life, music, and connection. This visit to Navarra became a turning point in how Spain saw her. Gone was the distant figure of royal duty. In her place stood a leader who could bridge tradition with humanity. Every smile that day told a story, of a girl who once struggled to speak in public, now making entire regions smile through her presence. Every laugh revealed confidence born not from titles, but from self-acceptance. And behind every funny moment, there was something deeper, the realization that Spain's next monarch will rule not through formality, but through empathy. When Leonor finally left Navarra, the air was filled with emotion. Locals waved until her car disappeared from sight. She waved back with that same radiant smile, the one that no protocol could ever teach. Later that night, social media exploded with clips and photos. Leonor laughing in Navarra became one of Spain's top trending phrases. International outlets picked it up, calling her Europe's most relatable princess. In private, perhaps she reflected on that day with her family. Maybe she shared her favorite moments with Queen Letizia and King Felipe over dinner. Maybe she told Sofia about the spicy pincho and the arrow gone wrong. We can imagine her laughter echoing again, softer now, but full of warmth. That visit wasn't about formality. It was about connection. It was about a future queen showing that even under the crown, there beats a human heart, curious, imperfect, joyful. And so, Navarra smiled. Because for one unforgettable day, they didn't just host royalty. They met a young woman who reminded them that even queens can laugh, stumble, and find beauty in the unexpected. Princess Leonor's laughter became the melody of that visit, spontaneous, genuine, unforgettable. And as Spain watched, one truth became clear: her reign, when it comes, will be built not on distance but on warmth. The people saw it. They felt it. They believed it. Navarra smiled, because Princess Leonor made the world smile with her. I grew up knowing what everyone expected of me. A crown, a future, a life already written. That part was never a secret. What was never discussed was love. And even less discussed was what my father thought about it. Because here is the truth no one prepares you for. When you were raised to inherit a nation, love is never just yours. And that is what I want to talk about. I want to start with what everyone assumes. The familiar image. The king and his heir. Public appearances. Perfect posture. Carefully chosen words. A father preparing his daughter to rule. That is the context people know. But here is the interruption. Behind closed doors, my father worries about my heart more than my title. And the counter-truth that surprises even me is this. He is not afraid of love ruining my future. He is afraid of duty emptying it. That realization changes everything, because from the outside, it looks like silence. Like restriction. Like emotional distance. But from the inside, it feels like protection shaped by experience. My father has lived through love under a microscope. Every look analyzed. Every feeling politicized. He knows what happens when affection becomes public property. He knows the cost of choosing with your heart when the world believes it owns the outcome. So when I think about love, I do not think about fairy tales. I think about conversations. Quiet ones. Measured ones. Sometimes uncomfortable ones. There was never a single moment where he sat me down and said you may or may not love. That would be too simple. Instead, there were questions. Long pauses. Carefully framed guidance that never sounded like orders. What do you think love asks of you? What are you willing to give? What are you not willing to lose? Those questions stay with you. Especially when you are young and already aware that your life will never belong only to you. Here is the part that surprises people the most. My father does not discourage love. He respects it, but he treats it as something serious. Something powerful. Something that shapes leaders as much as laws do. That is why he does not romanticize it. Because he knows what happens when love is idealized and then crushed by reality. I have watched him observe couples in public life. I have seen the weight behind his expressions when relationships are discussed in history books. He understands that love does not fail people. Systems do. Pressure does. Expectation does. And he does not want that for me. At the same time, he knows I am not a symbol. I am his daughter. And that creates tension. Because how do you raise a future monarch without hardening her into something unrecognizable? How do you protect her heart without isolating it? There were moments growing up when I felt the distance. When affection was structured. When privacy felt guarded. Not because of lack of love, but because of too much responsibility attached to it. Those moments taught me discipline. But they also taught me longing. And my father noticed. That is the part few people understand. He sees more than he says. When I became older, the conversations changed. They became less about rules and more about awareness. Love will come into your life whether we plan for it or not. The question is whether you will recognize it for what it is. Infatuation passes, attraction shifts, but partnership remains. Those were not lectures, they were reflections, his reflections, because he has lived through the evolution of love under public pressure. He knows what compromises are survivable and which ones hollow you out. And here is the most human truth of all. He wants me to be happy. Not perform happiness, not symbolize happiness, actually feel it. But he also knows happiness built without self-knowledge collapses quickly. So when people ask, why there are no public stories, no comments, no confirmations, this is why. Because my father believes love grows best when it is not rushed into narrative. He believes the heart deserves privacy before it becomes history. And he believes I deserve the chance to discover myself before someone else defines me. That belief is not control. It is patience. It is trust. And sometimes it is restraint that feels heavy when you are young. There are nights when I think about what love might look like for someone like me. Not as a princess, as a woman. Would it be quiet? Would it be resilient? Would it survive distance, duty, silence, and scrutiny? Those thoughts do not scare me. They ground me, because I know I am not walking into that future unprepared. My father's thoughts on my love are not limitations. They are warnings written in care. Do not lose yourself trying to please a story. Do not confuse attention with devotion. Do not sacrifice your integrity for romance. And perhaps most importantly, do not believe that love must be loud to be real. That lesson shapes how I move through the world now. It shapes how I listen, how I observe people, how I distinguish kindness from intention, and how I protect what I do not yet fully understand. There is also something deeply personal beneath all of this. My father knows one day he will step back. He knows I will stand alone in ways he cannot shield me from. And love will matter then more than ever. Because leadership without emotional grounding becomes brittle. He does not want that future for me. He wants me to lead with clarity, with strength, with a heart that has not been rushed, used, or hardened by spectacle. So when I finally express my mind on love, this is what I mean. I am not waiting because I am forbidden. I am waiting because I am learning. Learning who I am without expectation pressing against every emotion. Learning how to separate desire from destiny. Learning how to recognize love when it arrives quietly, honestly, without demand. And my father stands behind that choice. Not as a king, as a parent. That support is not always visible. But it is constant. It shows up in silence. In trust. In the freedom to grow before being defined. And one day, when love does enter my life fully, it will not be a rebellion. It will be a decision. A conscious one, built on self-knowledge, not fantasy. That is what my father hopes for. That is what I hope for. And that is why this story has never been rushed. Because some things, especially love, deserve time before they face the world.
The quiet impact, Princess Leonor unsung contribution to global causes. Royal impact is supposed to be visible. Headlines, cameras, applause. But this impact happens when no one is watching. The world expects royalty to give publicly. To be seen helping. To be praised for compassion. Leonor's contribution moves in the opposite direction. Quiet, measured, almost invisible. And that is exactly why it matters. What follows is not a list of appearances. It is a portrait of influence forming in silence. And how a future queen is learning to serve global causes without turning them into spectacle. Princess Leonor's quiet impact begins with absence. There are moments when her name does not appear in headlines. When cameras focus elsewhere. When her role seems minimal. Those moments are intentional, because Leonor is being taught that the most meaningful contribution is not always the most visible one. Her early involvement with global causes is structured around learning rather than leading. She is present in conversations without directing them. She observes systems before supporting them. This approach feels subtle, but it is strategic. Global causes are crowded with voices. What they often lack is careful attention. Leonor is trained to offer that attention. Behind palace walls, her education includes exposure to global challenges that never reach public speeches. Briefings on humanitarian crises, discussions about inequality, quiet explanations of how international institutions actually function. These moments are not ceremonial. They are formative. They teach her that global problems are rarely solved by gestures. They are addressed through persistence, coordination, and humility. Leonor's unsung contribution lies in how seriously she takes this preparation. She is not rushed into advocacy. She is protected from premature authority. This frustrates some observers who expect immediate leadership. But it protects the integrity of her future influence. Because credibility cannot be reclaimed once it is misused. Her parents understand this deeply. King Felipe has learned that restraint can preserve legitimacy. Queen Letizia understands the cost of visibility without substance. Together, they guide Leonor toward a quieter form of service. One that values continuity over recognition. Leonor's presence in global causes often takes the form of support rather than spotlight. She attends. She listens. She follows up. These actions rarely generate headlines, but they build relationships. Relationships are the backbone of global cooperation. Trust forms when people feel heard rather than managed. Leonor's calm demeanor encourages that trust. She does not arrive as an authority figure. She arrives as a participant learning her role. That humility disarms skepticism. It allows organizations to engage without defensiveness. This is especially important in international spaces where power imbalances are sensitive. Leonor's youth also shapes her impact. She represents continuity without dominance. Her presence signals long-term commitment rather than short-term publicity. Global causes respond to this. They see a future leader investing time before claiming influence. This creates a different kind of respect. Her unsung contributions also include internal change. Leonor brings global awareness back into the monarchy. Conversations she hears abroad inform discussions at home. Perspectives she absorbs influence how future priorities are framed. This internal ripple effect is rarely acknowledged. But it matters. Because monarchy does not act alone. It advises. It convenes. It sets tone. Leonor's growing understanding of global challenges shapes that tone quietly. She becomes a bridge between generations. Between traditional royal responsibility and modern expectations of accountability. Her contribution is not about solving crises. It is about understanding them well enough not to oversimplify. This restraint protects the dignity of the causes she supports. There is also emotional labor involved. Leonor is exposed to suffering she cannot personally alleviate. This creates frustration, empathy, helplessness. Her training teaches her to sit with those feelings without turning them into performance. This emotional discipline is difficult. It requires maturity beyond her years. It also deepens her compassion. She learns that service is not about fixing everything. It is about staying present even when solutions are slow. This presence is her quiet gift. Her relationship with her sister reinforces this grounding. Shared experiences of responsibility remind Leonor that service is not solitary. It is sustained through connection. That sense of shared purpose keeps her impact steady rather than overwhelming. Leonor's unsung role also includes symbolic reassurance. For global partners, her involvement signals stability. It suggests that Spain's commitment to international cooperation will continue beyond individual reigns. That continuity matters in a world marked by political volatility. Her presence reassures without announcing itself. It offers confidence without pressure. This kind of influence does not trend. It endures. Leonor's quiet impact challenges assumptions about leadership. It suggests that influence does not require constant visibility. That contribution can exist without applause. That service can be sincere without display. As she grows, her role will naturally become more visible. But its foundation will remain quiet. Built on listening, on learning, on restraint. These qualities are not celebrated often. but they are essential for global causes that depend on trust. Leonor's unsung contribution is therefore not measured in projects launched or funds raised. It is measured in relationships preserved, in credibility maintained, in dignity protected. She is learning to use her position to amplify others rather than herself. That choice shapes her future leadership. When she eventually speaks with authority, it will be grounded in experience rather than assumption. Her words will carry weight because they were preceded by silence. This is the quiet impact that cannot be photographed. The impact of preparation, of patience, of principled restraint. Princess Leonor's contribution to global causes is not loud. It is steady, and in a world overwhelmed by noise, that steadiness may be her most powerful legacy. Not because it demands attention, but because it earns trust. This is how her influence grows. Not in moments of applause, but in the spaces between them, and that is where lasting change begins. Princess Leonor decoding her leadership style on global diplomatic stages. Diplomacy is supposed to be loud. Flags, speeches, handshakes, but this future queen leads in near silence. The world expects heirs to perform, to charm, to impress, to dazzle. Leonor does something else. She listens first, and that is where her power begins. This is not the story of a princess learning protocol. This is the story of a young leader absorbing the world before daring to speak to it. And how that restraint may redefine Spain's voice on the global stage. When Princess Leonor steps into an international room, the first thing people notice is not her title. It is her composure. She does not rush to fill silence. She does not exaggerate gesture. She does not dominate space. In diplomacy, where overstatement often weakens credibility, this restraint is radical. Leonor's leadership style is not inherited whole. It is assembled carefully, piece by piece, through observation, discipline, and emotional control. Her earliest diplomatic exposures were not speeches. They were moments of watching, standing beside her parents during state visits, listening without interruption, learning where protocol ends and personality begins. Those moments are easy to overlook, but they shape everything, because leadership on the global stage is less about what is said and more about what is understood. Leonor is being trained to understand before she acts. This begins with language. Multilingual fluency is not just a skill for her. It is a mindset. Each language she speaks allows her to step briefly into another worldview, another history, another emotional logic. That matters in diplomacy, where misunderstanding is often born not of hostility, but of assumption. Leonor's linguistic discipline signals respect. It tells foreign leaders that Spain is listening, not lecturing. But language is only the surface. Her true diplomatic training happens internally. She is learning patience. In a world addicted to instant response, patience becomes authority. Leonor's appearances at international ceremonies are marked by stillness. She stands without urgency. She moves with intention. This is not passivity, it is control. Global leadership often rewards those who can remain unprovoked, who can absorb pressure without reacting emotionally. Leonor's calm is not accidental. It is cultivated. She watches how her father navigates tense moments, how King Felipe balances firmness with neutrality, how he speaks with precision rather than volume. From him, she learns that diplomacy is not persuasion, it is positioning. Queen Letizia adds another dimension. Her mother understands modern media, narrative, perception. Leonor learns that every gesture travels faster than any speech, that optics shape alliances before policy ever does. This creates a quiet tension in Leonor's training. Be authentic, but be measured. Be present, but be protected. That tension defines her leadership style. She is not encouraged to dominate international rooms. She is taught to anchor them. This is why her presence feels steady rather than spectacular. And that steadiness is strategic. Spain's diplomatic identity is built on mediation, cooperation, and cultural diplomacy. Leonor's demeanor aligns with this legacy naturally. She does not seek to be the loudest voice. She positions herself as a reliable one. Her military education deepens this approach. Uniform teaches hierarchy. Discipline teaches restraint. Command teaches responsibility without ego. When Leonor wears military attire during official events, it communicates more than tradition. It signals seriousness to international observers. She is not symbolic alone. She is trained. That matters in global diplomacy, where credibility is measured not by charm, but by preparedness. Her leadership style is forming around one core principle: respect before influence. She respects institutions. She respects processes. She respects silence. This earns trust quietly. Trust is the currency of diplomacy. Leonor is not yet negotiating treaties, but she is learning how trust is built in rooms where power is uneven and history is heavy. She studies posture, timing, when to step forward, when to step back. These choices shape how Spain will be perceived under her future reign. But diplomacy is not only external, it is deeply personal. Leonor navigates family expectations that are inseparable from state expectations. She is her father's successor, her mother's reflection, her sister's anchor. That family dynamic teaches her emotional intelligence. She learns how to hold authority without isolating those closest to her, how to lead without severing bonds. This emotional balance is critical on the world stage. Diplomatic failures often stem from emotional miscalculation, from pride, from impatience. Leonor's emotional discipline reduces that risk. She is not encouraged to react. She is trained to respond. There is a difference. Reaction reveals vulnerability. Response signals control. Her early diplomatic exposures emphasize listening to different perspectives without immediate judgment. She learns that leadership does not require agreement to offer respect. That skill will define her effectiveness in multilateral environments. Spain's role in international diplomacy is often as a bridge between regions, between ideologies, between cultures. Leonor's temperament aligns with this bridging role. She does not polarize. She absorbs. She does not provoke. She steadies. This is particularly significant given her generation. Young leaders are often expected to be disruptive, to challenge norms, to reinvent structures. Leonor's leadership style suggests something else. Preserve what works. Reform quietly. Stabilize first. This approach may not trend online, but it endures in diplomacy. Her global leadership will not be built on headlines. It will be built on reliability. And reliability is rare. Each international appearance adds another layer to her diplomatic education. She learns how different cultures interpret silence, how eye contact carries different meanings, how tradition can either open doors or close them. She stores these lessons. Her leadership style is cumulative. It grows through repetition, through exposure, through restraint. She does not rush to define herself globally because definition limits flexibility. Leonor understands that future queens must remain adaptable. Diplomacy changes faster than constitutions. What remains constant is character. And her character is being shaped to endure pressure without performance. There is also vulnerability in her approach. Silence can be misread as distance. Restraint can be mistaken for coldness. Leonor must navigate that risk. Her leadership style requires trust from the public that she is present even when she is quiet. This is where emotional transparency matters. Her moments of visible nervousness. Her careful breathing before speeches. Her measured pauses. These small signs humanize her. They reassure observers that behind the discipline is sincerity. That sincerity strengthens her diplomatic credibility. Because global leadership is no longer impressed by perfection. It is drawn to authenticity controlled by responsibility. Leonor embodies that balance. As she matures, her diplomatic voice will emerge more clearly. But it will not shout. It will clarify. She will speak when speech adds value. She will remain silent when silence preserves dignity. This is not hesitation. It is discernment. Discernment is the hallmark of mature leadership. Leonor's leadership style on global diplomatic stages will likely frustrate those seeking spectacle. But it will comfort those seeking stability. In a volatile world, stability becomes influence. Her preparation suggests she understands this deeply. She is not being trained to impress the world. She is being trained to represent it responsibly. That distinction matters, because the strongest leaders do not chase attention. They command respect by not needing it. Leonor's leadership style is quiet. But quiet does not mean weak. It means deliberate. It means grounded. It means enduring. And when she eventually steps fully onto the global stage, she will not arrive as a surprise. She will arrive as someone the world already trusts. Not because she spoke the loudest, but because she listened the longest. That is how her leadership is being decoded. And that is why her silence may one day speak louder than any speech.
Christmas with Leonor and Infanta Sofia. Bombshell shock that has Spain talking. Christmas in Spain is supposed to be predictable. Church bells, family photos, carefully scripted smiles. But this Christmas, Spain didn't just watch the royal family. Spain questioned it. Two sisters, one future queen, one silent force beside her. And a Christmas moment that changed how the country sees them forever. This is the Christmas with Leonor and Infanta Sofia that no one was prepared for. For centuries, royal Christmases weren't about joy. They were about continuity. Every appearance answered one silent question. Right finger, is the monarchy still stable? Spain remembers when that stability cracked. Scandals, exile, public trust shaken. So when the royal family steps out at Christmas, Spaniards don't just see tradition. They read signals. Who stands where? Who speaks? Who stays silent? Who looks ready, and who looks burdened? And this year, all eyes were on Leonor. But something unexpected happened. The attention didn't stop with her. Princess Leonor has spent most of her life preparing. Not for Christmas. For the crown. Military training. Constitutional oaths. Global diplomacy before adulthood. This Christmas, she didn't appear as a girl celebrating the holidays. She appeared as a symbol. Her posture was controlled, her expression calm, her presence deliberate. Every movement felt rehearsed. And Spain noticed something unsettling. Leonor no longer looks like she belongs to her age. She looks like she belongs to the state. A future queen already carrying the weight of the institution. But then, the camera shifted. Infanta Sofia has always lived in Leonor's shadow. No crown, no oath, no constitutional destiny. But this Christmas, she became impossible to ignore. Her body language was different. More relaxed, more human. Where Leonor represented duty, Sofia represented something Spain hasn't seen in a while. Freedom. She smiled more naturally. She interacted differently with the public. She seemed unburdened. And suddenly, Spain began asking the unthinkable. Right finger, what if Sofia is the one people relate to more? That question alone shook social media. It wasn't a speech. It wasn't a scandal. It was a moment. A brief interaction caught on camera. A glance. A laugh. A step slightly out of formation. In royal terms, that's seismic. Commentators froze the frame. Body language experts weighed in. Hashtags exploded. Some saw confidence. Others saw defiance. But most saw something else. Authenticity. And authenticity is dangerous to a monarchy built on protocol. Spain split in two. Small Diamond one side praised Leonor. She's already a queen. She understands sacrifice. She carries Spain with dignity. Small Diamond the other side gravitated toward Sofia. She feels real. She represents modern Spain. She's the one who connects. This wasn't about rivalry. It was about identity. What kind of monarchy does Spain want? A disciplined symbol, or a relatable presence? King Felipe and Queen Letizia watched it all unfold. Every parent wants their children happy. Every monarch wants the crown protected. And this Christmas exposed the hardest royal truth. You cannot protect both equally. Leonor must be shaped. Sofia must be allowed to exist. But what happens when the public begins choosing? 8. The unwritten future. What this Christmas changed 65-0080-00. After this Christmas, 3 things became clear. Leonor is no longer just a princess. She is already judged as a queen in waiting. Sofia is no longer the spare. She is a counterbalance. Spain is no longer watching silently. It is forming opinions. And once public opinion shifts, monarchy never looks the same again. 9. Final reflection. A Christmas that redefined the crown 80-0090-00. This wasn't just a holiday appearance. It was a mirror. Spain saw its past in tradition, its present in tension, and its future in 2 sisters walking side by side, carrying very different burdens, one bound by destiny, one shaped by choice. And this Christmas, Spain didn't just celebrate, it decided to look closer. If you think this Christmas changed how Spain sees its future queen, leave a comment. If you noticed Sofia stepping into her own, hit like. And if you want the next deep dive into royal power, pressure, and perception, subscribe. Because the crown doesn't wait. And neither does history. The palace courtyard fills the frame. A royal family, a familiar image, but something feels different. This is not just another appearance. This is a quiet rehearsal for the future. The cameras are live, but the moment is deeply personal. King Felipe steps forward with the calm authority Spain has come to recognize. Queen Letizia is beside him, composed, watchful, protective. And there they are, Princess Leonor and Infanta Sofia. Not behind, not hidden, standing fully in the light. For years, Spain has watched this family grow. But today, something shifts. Not announced, not declared, felt. Because this is not about protocol. It is about succession, presence, and a future queen learning how to carry a nation without saying a single word. Leonor does not rush. She never has. Her posture is steady, her expression attentive, serious but soft. This is the same young woman Spain first saw in school uniforms, then in military training, now stepping into a role that history has already written for her. And beside her is Sofia. Always observant, always slightly removed, yet essential. The sister who will never wear the crown, but who may carry its weight in quieter ways. When King Felipe speaks, the tone is familiar. Duty, service, stability. But his eyes move, briefly, toward his daughters. It is the look of a father who understands time better than anyone else in that space. He knows what comes next. Queen Letizia's presence anchors the moment. Once an outsider to royalty herself, she now stands as the bridge between tradition and modern Spain. She watches Leonor not with instruction, but with trust. The kind of trust earned over years of preparation away from cameras. And that preparation matters, because Leonor's path has not been symbolic. It has been deliberate. Education across borders, military discipline, constitutional responsibility, each step designed not to impress, but to endure. As the live coverage continues, viewers notice the details. How Leonor listens before she speaks. How she aligns her stance with her father. How Sofia subtly mirrors her sister's composure, even as she maintains her own identity. This is not accidental. In royal families, nothing ever is. Spain has lived through uncertainty before. Abdications, transitions, public doubt. The monarchy understands that visibility is no longer enough. It must be credibility. And today, credibility is standing in plain sight. Leonor does not smile often during this appearance. When she does, it is restrained, measured. It tells its own story. She is not here to charm. She is here to learn how to hold silence, how to absorb pressure, how to be read by millions without reacting. That is the burden of being a future queen. The crowd senses it. The commentators circle around it. The audience at home feels it even if they cannot name it. This is not a performance. This is formation. Sofia's role becomes clearer as the moments pass. She steps slightly back when needed. She steps forward when the family closes ranks. Her presence is reassurance, balance, continuity without competition, and that dynamic matters more than titles. Because history shows that monarchies survive not only on heirs but on unity. King Philippe's reign has been defined by steadiness. Not spectacle, not excess. And in this appearance, he shows Spain what steadiness looks like when it is passed on. Leonor absorbs every second. She is not being introduced to Spain. Spain already knows her. She is being shown as ready to be seen differently. Not as a child of the crown, but as its future. Queen Letizia glances toward the cameras only briefly. Her focus remains on her daughters. On their posture, their timing, their calm. She knows the world will judge them harshly and early. She has prepared them for that reality. And Leonor responds with quiet confidence. There is no grand announcement in this live moment. No declaration of power. And that is precisely why it resonates. Because power that lasts does not announce itself loudly. It arrives prepared. As the event continues, the family moves together. No one leads too far ahead. No one lags behind. It is a choreography built on years of private correction and public restraint. Spain watches a future forming in real time. Leonor speaks briefly. Her voice is steady, thoughtful, every word weighed. She does not sound rehearsed. She sounds responsible, and that distinction matters. This is the voice Spain will hear in moments of crisis one day. This is the presence that will stand at state funerals, national celebrations, and moments of collective uncertainty. And today, she is learning how it feels to do that while her parents are still beside her. That is the gift King Felipe and Queen Letizia are giving her. Transition without rupture. Growth without drama. Sophia's glance toward her sister is quick, supportive, almost invisible, but it is there, a reminder that the future queen will not walk alone. As the live coverage wins on, the realization settles in. This is not about now. It is about later. About a Spain that wants continuity without stagnation. Tradition without distance. A monarchy that understands the modern world without losing its foundation. Leonor stands as that promise. Not perfect, not finished, but undeniably in motion. And for the first time, many viewers do not ask if she will be ready. They ask when. Because today answered something quietly but clearly. The future Queen of Asturias is no longer preparing off stage. She is already here.
Heirs of destiny, Leonor and Sofia. Everyone thinks they know Spain's future. Everyone assumes the crown will follow a straight line. But suddenly, everything shifted. Because behind the polished royal gates, two sisters rewrote the meaning of destiny. And the world never saw it coming. From the very beginning, the story of Princess Leonor and Infanta Sofia was never just about birth order. It was about the unspoken bond of two girls raised under the weight of a crown, one destined to wear it, the other destined to protect the one who will. The value of their journey reveals itself immediately. Two daughters growing up in the most observed family in Spain. Two hearts shaped by pressure, tradition, and the constant reminder that their lives, every movement, every word, would echo through history. Leonor, the elder, stepped first into the spotlight. Her early speeches, small and nervous at first, became symbols of a changing monarchy. Spain saw her grow from a quiet child into a young woman whose voice carried both discipline and emotion. But behind that transformation was someone equally important, Sofia. Because while the world watched Leonor, Sofia watched something else, the cost. This is where the first curiosity opens. How do you grow up knowing your sister's life will be carved by duty, while yours is shaped by service to her? And why, despite the imbalance, does their bond seem stronger than most siblings? To understand that, we need to return to their childhood. They were raised not in isolation, but in a home where Queen Letizia emphasized unity. She taught them that royalty is not a privilege, it's a responsibility. She made them read, debate, discuss history, ethics, and the real struggles their country faced. And King Felipe guided them with quiet discipline, shaping them into young women who understood that the world was bigger than their palace. Leonor was trained earlier, yes. But Sofia was trained alongside her, not as a shadow, but as a mirror. A confidant, a partner in every step of an unpredictable future. Here's where another curiosity loop forms. Why does Spain increasingly see Sofia as the silent power beside the throne? And how does this change the monarchy's future? The answer lies in the moments the public rarely sees. The late-night study sessions at Zarzuela. The shared notebooks from their school years. The way Leonor looks at Sofia before every major appearance, grounding herself with her sister's presence. These moments reveal something deeper. Sofia isn't just accompanying her sister. She's reinforcing her. When Leonor attended the military academies, Spain watched her march, endure, and rise. But what they didn't see was the fierce encouragement from Sofia each time the crown princess doubted herself. It was Sofia who reminded her of the legacy she was born into. It was Sofia who made her laugh on days when training left bruises both visible and invisible. Their bond became a force, subtle, powerful, and unbreakable. Then came the turning point. Public appearances began showing something unexpected, a shift in dynamic. Sofia wasn't just the younger sister. She became the calm anchor in every official scene, a future national figure in her own right. So we ask another question. What role will Sofia play in the monarchy's next era? And how does Leonor feel knowing her reign depends not only on her strength, but on her sister's loyalty? The truth is emotional and real. Leonor trusts Sofia in ways no one else can replicate. She leans on her, not as a queen in training, but as a sister who knows her fears, her doubts, and her quiet dreams. In Sofia, she accepts the role not with jealousy, but with pride. She understands that the crown cannot survive without unity. And unity begins with them. Their adolescence became a turning point. At school, they defended each other. At home, they shared secrets about the pressure that came with expectations. They built a private world, a sanctuary where they could escape the weight of history, even if only for a moment. By the time Leonor completed her first major speeches and national duties, Spain began to notice the pattern. Where Leonor went, Sofia followed. Where Sofia stood, Leonor found steadiness. Then came the moment that sealed public opinion. Their appearance together at the Princess of Asturias Awards. Leonor spoke with power and clarity, but Sofia's presence beside her, poised, confident, protective, became one of the most defining images of the modern monarchy. It was then that Spain realized. Leonor may be the future queen, but Sofia is the guardian of that future. This evolving partnership draws comparisons to other historic royal pairs, but none truly match it. Because this story isn't about rivalry. It's about harmony, not competition, complement, not supremacy, support. Another curiosity loop emerges. What happens when Leonor ascends the throne? Will Sofia remain in the background? Or will she transform into a public figure with her own national influence? Evidence already points to the second. Sofia has grown more comfortable in public roles. She's found her voice. She's developed her own style of presence, calm, warm, steady. And experts believe she may take on roles tied to education, culture, youth leadership, or humanitarian causes. Not as a mere royal representative, but as one of Spain's most influential future women. As Leonor moves closer to leadership, another emotional shift appears. She begins embracing her destiny not with fear, but with determination. And that determination is fueled by knowing she is not alone. Their bond creates a unique dynamic. One sister preparing to carry a crown, the other preparing to protect the one who wears it. Together, they symbolize the monarchy Spain will rely on, modern, united, emotionally intelligent. As they step further into adulthood, their roles become clearer, but their bond becomes even deeper. The pressures grow stronger, the expectations grow heavier, but their unity becomes the monarchy's greatest strength. And so we land on the final question of this journey. What truly makes Leonor and Sofia the heirs of destiny? It's not titles, it's not bloodlines, it's not ceremonies, or photos, or grand speeches. It's the love between them, the loyalty, the quiet promises made when no cameras are present, the shared understanding that destiny is not carried alone, it is carried together. Two sisters, two futures intertwined, two hearts shaped by the same destiny. Spain watches them, not because they are royalty, but because they are a reminder that leadership begins not with power, but with family. This is their story, their journey, their destiny, and the world is only beginning to understand what these two sisters will become.
David versus Goliath, the moment faith confronted power. Two armies stood frozen, not because they lacked weapons, not because they lacked soldiers, but because fear had a voice. And that voice was a giant. On one side, power, armor, intimidation. On the other, faith, courage, and a shepherd boy. This is not just a story about a battle. This is the moment faith confronted power. And history was never the same. Beat. This is David versus Goliath. The Valley of Elah, a wide battlefield between two hills. On one hill stood the Philistines, seasoned warriors, confident, ruthless. On the other hill stood Israel, God's chosen people, trembling. Every morning, every evening, a single man stepped forward. Goliath of Gath, a champion, a symbol of domination. His presence alone shattered morale. He didn't rush, he didn't fight, he spoke. Choose a man to fight me. And with those words, Israel's courage collapsed. Even King Saul, tall, armed, chosen, said nothing. Because power doesn't always need to strike. Sometimes, it only needs to intimidate. Goliath represented more than strength. He represented everything people fear. Overwhelming odds, public humiliation, the belief that some battles are already lost. He mocked Israel, but more importantly, he mocked their faith. Day after day, his challenge echoed. And day after day, silence answered. Power had spoken. Faith had gone quiet. Far from the battlefield, a boy tended sheep. David was not a soldier. He was not trained for war. He was young, overlooked, dismissed. When David arrived with food for his brothers, he heard the giant's voice. And unlike everyone else, David didn't hear fear. He heard defiance against God. "Who is this Philistine?" David asked. "That he should defy the armies of the living God." Where others saw danger, David saw dishonor. And that changed everything. David stood before King Saul. No armor, no sword, no military reputation, only testimony. He spoke of lions, of bears, of battles fought in obscurity. Not with strength, but with trust. Saul offered armor. David tried it, then removed it. Because faith cannot wear borrowed confidence. He chose 5 smooth stones. And a sling, not because he trusted the stones, but because he trusted God. The valley went silent. Goliath laughed. Power always laughs at faith. Until faith stands firm. David didn't insult. He didn't threaten. He declared, "You come to me with sword and spear, but I come to you in the name of the Lord." This wasn't arrogance. This was clarity. 2 worldviews collided. Strength versus trust. Fear versus belief. Power versus faith. 1 stone flew. And the giant fell. Not because David was strong, but because faith stood taller than fear. The battlefield changed instantly. What fear had frozen, faith unlocked. Israel surged forward. The Philistines fled. 1 act of faith restored courage to an entire nation. David didn't just defeat a giant. He shattered a mindset. The belief that power always wins. This story endures because it mirrors our lives. Our giants may not wear armor, but they speak loudly. Fear, doubt, rejection, hopelessness. And like Goliath, they tell us, "You are too small." David's story reminds us, faith does not deny reality. Faith confronts it. You don't need to be the strongest. You need to be the most faithful. Every generation has its valley. Every person has their giant. And every moment asks the same question. Will you hide behind fear? Or step forward in faith? Because when faith confronts power, power never has the final word. If this story inspired you, like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone facing their own giant. And remember, you may feel small, but faith still moves mountains.
From student to future queen, Princess Leonor's journey explained. For years, the world saw her simply as the quiet daughter of a king. But slowly, steadily, and unmistakably, she began to transform. From classrooms to royal halls, from school uniforms to military training, from student life to state duties. Princess Leonor's journey has become one of the most closely watched transformations in modern Europe. Today, we break down, step by step, how a young girl became the future Queen of Spain. Princess Leonor was born into history. From the moment she arrived, she wasn't just a child. She was the future of a centuries-old monarchy. But her early life wasn't filled with royal pressure. Her parents chose something different. They gave her a childhood rooted in stability, education, and normal routines. While the world expected formality, her early years were defined by simple family moments, close ties with her sister, Infanta Sofia, and gradual exposure to public life. Nothing rushed, nothing forced, just the foundation of a future leader carefully built, step by step. Leonor's education became the backbone of her development. She attended rigorous schools where expectations were high, but so was the support. She learned multiple languages, developed a disciplined academic pattern, and cultivated the character Spain would one day depend on. Her teachers described her as focused. Her classmates saw her as calm and respectful. Observers noticed her growing confidence, her careful speech, and her thoughtful presence. This wasn't accidental. This was preparation, designed to shape a future queen. Her first major public duties arrived earlier than many expected. At official events, she didn't speak often, but when she did, people listened. Her speeches were precise, her posture controlled, her expression steady. The world began to see something important. Princess Leonor wasn't being pushed into responsibility. She was growing into it. Her early duties taught her 3 essential skills: presence, composure, and responsibility. Skills every monarch must master. Every future leader has a turning point. A moment when the world shifts from, will she be ready? To, she is ready. For Princess Leonor, that moment arrived through a series of key public appearances. She delivered speeches with maturity far beyond her years. She began representing Spain internationally. She engaged more directly with national ceremonies. People noticed the transformation. Commentators saw discipline. Citizens saw hope. Royal watchers saw leadership emerging in real time. This was no longer the quiet royal child. This was the beginning of a queen in training. Then came one of the most defining chapters of her journey. Military training. In Spain, future monarchs serve in the military. It isn't symbolic. It's a demanding, physical, mentally challenging process. And Leonor faced it head-on. Early mornings, structured routines, teamwork, responsibility, discipline. These weren't just tasks. They were lessons in leadership. Lessons in respect. Lessons in duty. Her training marked a clear evolution. She wasn't preparing for a ceremonial title. She was preparing to lead a nation. And with every uniform she wore, every formation she completed, every responsibility she accepted, she grew more into the role Spain expects her to fill. Princess Leonor isn't just a traditional royal figure. She's a modern young adult navigating a world that moves fast. She reflects the values of her generation: hard work, global awareness, education, calm confidence, and discipline. She's poised, yet relatable. Reserved, yet respected. Young, yet deeply prepared. As Gen Z rises into leadership roles across the world, Princess Leonor has become a symbol of a new kind of monarchy, one that aims to balance tradition with modern expectations. But the road ahead is not simple. Becoming Queen of Spain carries weight: political, cultural, historical. She must learn constitutional responsibilities, national representation, diplomatic relationship building, and the expectations of millions. She will one day be a symbol of unity, a representative of Spain to the world, and a bridge between tradition and the future. Her training continues, not just in military and academics, but in the quiet moments, observing state meetings, preparing for national events, and learning the responsibilities her father, King Felipe VI, fulfills today. This stage of her journey is not about childhood or adolescence. It's about gradual transformation into leadership. Why does Princess Leonor matter so much? Because she represents stability in uncertain times. Because she stands at the center of a monarchy adapting to a changing world. Because she has become a symbol of responsibility, dedication, and youth stepping into leadership. Her influence reaches beyond Spain. Across Europe, she is recognized as one of the most prepared future monarchs of her generation. Not because she seeks attention, but because she has earned respect through discipline and consistency. Her journey inspires millions, not with dramatic statements or flashy appearances, but with steady growth, commitment, and purpose. And so, the story of Princess Leonor is not just about royalty. It's about preparation, responsibility, leadership, growth. From student, to prepared young adult, to future queen, her journey continues, and the world watches with anticipation. Because this is not just the story of a princess. It is the rise of a leader shaped for the future of Spain. This is Princess Leonor's journey. From student to future queen.
How Princess Leonor won the hearts of millions during her latest royal engagement. Everyone expected a normal royal appearance. A smile, a wave, a few carefully chosen words. But what happened next shocked everyone. Because Princess Leonor didn't just attend a royal engagement. She transformed it. And the world realized something no one saw coming. It began with an ordinary schedule. A routine engagement on the royal calendar that most people barely pay attention to. But the moment Princess Leonor stepped out of the car, you could feel the air shift. Cameras lifted. Crowds pressed forward. Even the officials waiting at the entrance straightened their posture. Something about her presence was different. Stronger, warmer, more grounded. But the question everyone asked was simple: why did this appearance capture millions of hearts around the world? To understand that, we have to look at what truly unfolded that day, moment by moment, gesture by gesture. And as each layer reveals itself, another question rises behind it, pulling us deeper into the emotional story of a future queen learning how to lead with humanity, not just duty. The first sign came when Leonor walked toward the waiting crowd. She didn't just wave, she connected. Her expression softened with genuine warmth, the kind you cannot rehearse. She looked into faces, not cameras. And instead of rushing past, she slowed down. A small adjustment, barely noticeable, but emotionally powerful. Why? Because leadership begins with attention. And she gave it freely. The crowd reacted instantly, leaning forward, smiling wider, cheering louder. People felt seen. Children stretched their hands out with a kind of hopeful energy, and Leonor responded with kindness that felt natural, not staged. Every handshake was deliberate. Every smile carried sincerity. And this is where the first curiosity loop deepens. What made her so emotionally open that day? The answer became clearer as her interaction unfolded. When a young girl nervously approached with a small handmade drawing, Leonor didn't simply accept it. She knelt slightly, lowered her voice, and asked the girl who made it. The girl whispered that she spent all night working on it. Leonor smiled with a softness that cameras instantly captured, a moment that flooded the internet within minutes. Millions shared it because it wasn't the drawing that mattered. It was the way Leonor honored the child's effort. But that was only the beginning. Inside the event hall, Leonor took on a role that surprised even senior organizers. Instead of waiting for introductions, she initiated them. Instead of following the script exactly as written, she added warmth and personal comments. She greeted each participant with a sense of respect that felt far beyond her 19 years. This raised another question: where did this newfound confidence come from? Royal watchers pointed to her intense military training, which taught her presence, discipline, and courage. Others pointed to her upbringing under Queen Letizia, who shaped her daughters with a focus on empathy, responsibility, and emotional intelligence. But the truth lies somewhere in between, a combination of discipline and humanity, strength and softness, duty and heart. As the engagement continued, Leonor delivered a short speech. It wasn't long, it wasn't theatrical, but it struck a chord because her tone carried something deeply sincere. Her voice held a calm assurance, but also vulnerability, the rare blend that makes people trust, relate, and connect. When she finished, something unexpected happened. The applause wasn't polite. It was emotional. People stood spontaneously. Phones lifted. Some in the audience wiped tears. The speech wasn't about power. It was about people, and they felt it. But the moment that truly captured millions happened outside, after the event. A group of older citizens waited behind the barriers. Many were holding small Spanish flags. One elderly woman, struggling to stand, leaned heavily on her cane. While security prepared to guide Leonor past, she noticed the woman and paused. She turned, walked back, and gently reached for her hand. The woman whispered something, and Leonor bent closer to hear. No microphones caught the words. No cameras captured the full conversation. But the woman's trembling smile said everything. That brief silent exchange became the emotional core of the entire engagement. People online replayed that clip for days, describing it as the moment Leonor stopped being a princess and started becoming a queen. Not because she made a grand gesture, but because she paused, listened, and gave dignity to someone her country often overlooks. This leads to the next curiosity loop. why did such a simple gesture have such monumental impact? Because in a world accustomed to distant power, Leonor's closeness felt revolutionary. She didn't teach with authority. She led with empathy. She didn't demand admiration. She earned it. After the event, journalists described her interactions as unexpectedly tender. Analysts noted her maturity, citizens praised her humility, and international media began calling her one of the most relatable young royals of her generation. The engagement had gone from local to global in hours. But deeper than the global attention was the emotional realignment happening within Spain. People saw in her a future leader who didn't hover above them, but walked among them. Someone who carried the crown's weight without losing her humanity. And someone who could shape the Spanish monarchy into something modern, compassionate, and grounded in the lived experiences of ordinary citizens. Yet, the most intriguing part of her evolution came later in the evening. Behind the scenes, just before leaving, Leonor spoke privately with the event organizers. Instead of rushing out, she asked thoughtful questions about the challenges their community faced. Not scripted questions, real ones. The organizers later said she listened more than she spoke, taking in each word with attention that made them feel valued. This small act, unseen by most, confirmed the truth: her compassion wasn't for the cameras. It was who she truly was. And this is what millions connected with. From the first moment she stepped out of the car to the final goodbye, Princess Leonor carried herself with a blend of strength and kindness that felt rare, refreshing, and deeply necessary in today's world. She didn't dominate the moment. She elevated it. She didn't demand admiration. She inspired it. The reason she won the hearts of millions wasn't because she tried to impress. It was because she showed the world her authentic self, a young woman shaped by duty but guided by empathy, preparing to become a future queen who leads not only with authority, but with heart. As she entered the car at the end of the engagement, she looked back one more time at the crowd. A simple gesture. A quiet acknowledgement of everyone who came to see her. And in that expression, captured in one final camera flash, people saw not just a princess fulfilling her duties, but a leader rising into her destiny. This is how Princess Leonor won the hearts of millions during her latest royal engagement, and why Spain, and the world, are watching her journey with growing admiration, trust, and hope. Like and subscribe to future Queen Chronicles.
A royal love story, a family known for unity. A future planned in gold. Until everything cracked. Because behind palace walls, perfection lies. But so does pressure. And pressure breaks the strongest hearts. And today, you're about to enter the part of the Spanish royal family's story that was never meant to be heard. The story begins inside the grand silence of Zarzuela Palace. A silence so heavy it feels like velvet curtains falling after a failed performance. It is here, behind centuries of protocol and responsibility, that the first ripple of the crisis begins, quietly, almost invisibly. A romance that once felt promising, warm, filled with hope. But royal love is never simple. Royal love has rules. Royal love carries a crown long before it carries a heartbeat. And that is where everything starts to change. At first, the family senses nothing unusual. Royal engagements, national ceremonies, official appearances, everything seems perfectly coordinated. The cameras capture smiles. The public sees elegance. The world believes the royal family stands on unshakable ground. But privately, the cracks begin to appear. Unspoken tensions, shadows behind polished formality, moments where duty demands silence, but emotion demands release. It begins with a single missed appearance, a small, easily dismissed detail. But inside royal life, nothing is small. Nothing is accidental. Every gesture, every expression, every change in behavior becomes a world of speculation. And that missed moment reveals something deeper. Someone's heart is breaking. Someone's trust has been tested. Someone's future, once bright, has become uncertain. Because inside the royal family, a romance that once looked promising now faces forces that no ordinary couple ever experiences. Media pressure, political interpretation, national expectations, family legacy, and above all, the fear of repeating history. The family gathers for a private discussion, a closed-door meeting where emotions are carefully controlled but impossible to suppress. Words are spoken with calm voices, but every sentence carries 1,000 unspoken truths. Love is questioned, loyalty is measured, duty becomes a weight heavier than heartbreak itself. The young royal at the center of it all sits quietly, hands folded, knowing that no matter the outcome, life will never be the same again. Because love in a palace is a fragile thing. It must withstand tradition. It must withstand scrutiny. It must withstand destiny. The romance begins to unravel slowly, painfully. There is no dramatic moment, no public announcement. Just a gradual fading, like a royal portrait losing its color. The couple tries to hold on, fighting for the connection they once treasured. But every attempt is met with another obstacle. One partner feels the strain of the spotlight. The other feels the crushing responsibility of the throne. Both feel the impossibility of living a normal love in a very unnormal world. And finally, the moment comes. A private conversation, a quiet room, two people who once dreamed of a shared future now sitting across from one another, realizing that love alone isn't enough to overcome everything assaulting them from the outside. No shouting, no accusations, just the soft, heartbreaking truth. Sometimes the crown wins. The news reaches the family. Not as a scandal, not as a headline, but as a personal loss, the kind of loss that can only be understood in silence. The queen feels the weight of her child's pain. The king feels the burden of history repeating itself. The younger generations watch, learning the unspoken lesson that royalty pays for love in a currency no one else can understand. The palace atmosphere shifts. Public events proceed as usual, but there is a subtle change, a softness in expression, a quietness in posture, a shadow of reflection in every royal step. And while the world sees elegance, the family lives through recovery. Recovering from a love that could not survive the world around it. Recovering from a moment that reshaped the future. Recovering from the realization that even inside palaces, hearts break. But the human spirit, even in the most royal of lives, rises again. And that is where the story turns. The young royal begins rebuilding, with strength, maturity, and a renewed understanding of destiny. The heartbreak becomes a lesson, not a wound. A transformation, not an ending. A reminder that even in a royal crisis, even in shattered romance, even in the weight of a national crown, humanity endures. And that is the message the royal family wants the nation to understand. They may wear crowns. They may follow protocol. They may live in palaces. But their hearts hurt the same, heal the same, grow the same. The crisis becomes a quiet chapter in a much bigger story. A chapter not of scandal, but of evolution. A private reshaping of identity. A test of emotional endurance. And though the romance is gone, something new emerges. A stronger sense of purpose. A deeper understanding of love. A clearer vision of the future. And this future, unlike the shattered romance, is unbreakable. Because sometimes, the crown does not destroy. Sometimes, it protects. Sometimes, it guides hearts back to themselves.
It was supposed to be another quiet morning inside the thick stone walls of the Royal Palace of Madrid. A routine day, a predictable day, a day like so many others. But no, something broke the pattern, something no one expected, something no one believed would happen so soon. And yet, here it was. Confirmed, signed, sealed, irrevocable. King Felipe VI has officially signed the marriage documents. For a moment, the entire palace seemed to stop breathing. Guards exchanged glances. Advisors adjusted their posture. Even the silent hallways, echoing centuries of royal footsteps, felt charged with an electricity that refused to settle. No rumor, no speculation, no whisper. This was real. This was happening. And the signature that changed everything had been placed with deliberate, unwavering resolve. But how did we get here? Why now? And what does this mean for the Spanish monarchy, for the nation, for the family, and for the young heir who stands at the center of this historic moment? To understand the significance of this document, we must go back to the pressures, the expectations, the private conversations, the difficult decisions, and the emotional turning points that led to this very moment. For months, there were whispers that King Felipe VI was weighing the consequences of solidifying his daughter's future with a single stroke of the pen. The weight of monarchy is not just carried in public ceremonies and glittering tiaras. It is carried in private rooms, behind closed doors, where every choice becomes a legacy, and every legacy becomes history. And Felipe, as a father and a king, felt that weight every single day. The marriage documents did not simply appear overnight. They represent years of preparation, political calculation, and emotional endurance. They represent Leonor's growth from a shy, dutiful young girl into a poised crown princess who has embraced the destiny laid before her. And they represent the enormous shift within a family that has lived under scrutiny, tradition, and unspoken expectations. When Felipe lifted the pen, the air in the room tightened. Advisors watched with reverence, understanding that this signature was not just symbolic. It was binding. It was final. It was the beginning of a new era. And Felipe knew it. He paused, just for a heartbeat, long enough to remember the weight of his own signing day decades earlier. The day he stepped into a future that was never truly his own choosing. A future shaped by ancestry, duty, and the relentless demands of monarchy. He did not want his daughter to feel forced into a life she did not want. But he also knew she had chosen. Leonor stood with conviction. And it was her certainty, her calm, her resolve that steadied his hand. But why did this moment carry so much emotional tension? Because this was not just a royal announcement. This was the official confirmation that Spain's future queen is stepping fully into her destiny. Every monarch must eventually face the truth that their heir will grow beyond their protection, beyond their guidance, beyond the boundaries of childhood. And now Felipe faced that truth head-on. Inside the palace, whispers circulated. Some wondered if the king had hesitated. Others wondered if Queen Letizia had reservations. Still others speculated about the political implications. Would this secure the monarchy's stability? Would it ignite public fascination? Would it draw criticism? Every question seemed to open another door, another curiosity loop, another layer of tension. Yet as the ink dried, the questions only multiplied. What role did Letizia play in these final preparations? What were the private conversations between mother and daughter in the days leading up to this moment? It is said that Letizia, known for her precision and emotional insight, spoke to Leonor not as a queen, but as a mother. A mother preparing her daughter for the highest responsibility any woman in Spain can bear. A mother quietly wrestling with the fear of letting go. And then there was Leonor herself. Calm, steady, focused. Those who saw her in the hours before the signing noticed something different in her presence. A maturity that had fully settled. A certainty that radiated. She understood the magnitude of what was unfolding. She knew the world was watching. But she also knew that this was not just a royal duty. It was a decision tied to her heart, to her personal life, and to her future as both a woman and a monarch. So what exactly was contained in the document Felipe signed? Beyond the formal legal statements, the protocols, the traditional language crafted over generations, it included the official royal consent. Without that consent, no marriage involving the heir to the throne could take place. Without the king's signature, everything would fall apart. With it, everything moved forward. But here is the real question: what pushed Felipe to sign today? What shifted? What changed? According to palace insiders, the turning point came from a private family meeting days earlier. A meeting filled with emotion, honesty, and deep reflection. Leonor expressed her readiness, not out of obligation, but out of conviction. Felipe saw it. Letizia saw it. And something softened, then strengthened, in that moment. But not everyone inside the palace was at ease. Some senior figures feared the rapid timeline. Others questioned whether the international implications had been fully considered. Still others worried about public reaction. Yet Felipe, after listening to every voice, chose to follow the one voice that mattered most, his daughter's. As the king lifted the signed document, the chamber remained silent. Advisors awaited his signal. Guards stood motionless. And then, with calm authority, Felipe nodded. The process was complete. The palace shifted in energy instantly. Word spread, first through the inner circle, then through the corridors, then through the communications offices preparing the official announcement. A wave, unstoppable, surged through the entire institution. But the signing of the documents is only the first act of a much larger story. Now the focus turns to the preparations, the political implications, the cultural celebrations, the protocols that will soon unfold in front of the world. And it raises new questions. When will the public announcement be made? What role will Queen Letizia play in the ceremonial preparations? How will Spain react? What international royal houses have quietly been informed? And most importantly, how is Leonor herself preparing for the role of a lifetime? In the coming days, every detail will matter. Every step will be scrutinized. Every gesture will carry meaning. The marriage documents do not simply authorize a union. They reshape the monarchy's future. They mark a new chapter in the House of Bourbon. They signal the emergence of Leonor not only as the future queen, but as a woman stepping fully into her historic position. This moment is the beginning of a long, emotional, deeply symbolic journey. A journey filled with love, duty, sacrifice, and destiny. King Felipe VI has made his decision. The ink is dry, the future is set in motion, and Spain now stands on the edge of a new royal era. This is not just official. It is monumental. It is personal. It is history unfolding in real time. And everything from this moment forward will shape the reign of Spain's next monarch. The king has signed. The path is open. And the story continues. In the ancient halls where crowns were forged and kingdoms rose from stone, the story of royalty was written in whispers of tradition and echoes of destiny. For centuries, rulers walked beneath arches carved with the symbols of power, their footsteps guarded by honor, duty, and legacy. And today, that timeless journey continues. A new heir rises, carrying the weight of history and the promise of the future. The lineage endures. The royal flame still burns. And the world watches as the next chapter begins. Like and subscribe to Future Queen Chronicle for more daily royal updates. Everyone knows the image of a royal princess dressed in soft colors, walking across marble halls and waving gracefully at the crowd. But what if everything you thought you knew about royal fashion, royal power, and royal symbolism was quietly challenged by a single choice? A single color. A single dress. Because today, something completely unexpected is happening across the royal world. Princess Leonor, the future Queen of Spain, has become known everywhere as the lady with the red dress. And this name is not accidental. It is not random. It is not a coincidence. It is the result of a rising royal phenomenon that has surprised stylists, historians, European royal watchers, and millions of people who have followed her evolution from childhood to heir. But here is the twist. The red dress is not just fashion. It is strategy. It is identity. It is royal messaging at its finest. And once you understand it, you will never look at Princess Leonor's public appearances the same way again. So now we begin the story. Princess Leonor has always carried a level of expectation on her shoulders that few can fully understand. Born into the Spanish royal family, raised under global attention, and trained for leadership from the earliest years, every step of her life has been observed, analyzed, and interpreted. But something changed the first time she stepped out wearing an official red dress. At first, people thought it was a coincidence, a simple outfit chosen for a formal ceremony. But the reaction was powerful and immediate. Media headlines exploded. Social feeds filled instantly. Royal followers across Spain, Denmark, the UK, and the United States began reposting the moment over and over again. The red dress didn't just stand out. It dominated everything around her. But why? Why red? Why now? And why does it matter so much? Here is where the story becomes deeper than it looks. Because the red dress was not simply a fashion choice. It carried centuries of symbolism. In Spanish royal history, red is the color of authority, leadership, courage, and the formal identity of the future sovereign. Red is the color of power in royal portraits. Red is the color worn in moments of transition. Red is the color that signals, without speaking, that the future is stepping forward. And so, when Princess Leonor began appearing repeatedly in official red, something subtle but important happened. A new narrative began forming. A new image began solidifying. A new energy began rising inside the Spanish monarchy itself. But the curiosity doesn't end there. Because once the public noticed the shift, the question spread everywhere: was this intentional? Was this personal expression? Was this the palace sending a message? Or was this the next phase of preparing the future queen? The more Leonor appeared in red, the stronger the fascination grew. She wore it during official ceremonies, international meetings, national celebrations, military events, and cultural receptions. Each time, the reaction became louder, and soon commentators across Europe started calling her the Lady with the Red Dress, a title that did not fade but grew with global momentum. And here is the surprising part. The nickname became more than a label. It became a symbol of her new identity as a young future monarch rising into her own strength. But let's go deeper. When Leonor steps into an event wearing her official red dress, she does something most public figures never manage to achieve: she takes full control of the visual narrative. Cameras lock onto her. Commentators fall silent. Crowds turn their eyes directly to her. The room shifts. The energy moves around her. Her presence becomes impossible to ignore. Red becomes her power, her expression, her statement that she is no longer the quiet young princess people once knew, but a confident young woman stepping steadily toward the throne. And yet, a new question rises: when did this transformation begin? To understand that, we must look back at her early teenage years. During that period, Leonor wore mostly soft blues, whites, creams, and pastel tones, the classic palette for young European royals. These colors sent a polite message: gentleness, youth, and neutrality. But as she approached adulthood, changes in her training, her responsibilities, and her public role pushed her into a new phase. She entered military academy. She attended state ceremonies as the heir. She began delivering speeches not as a child of royalty, but as the future Queen of Spain. And with that, her wardrobe matured too. Red began appearing slowly at first, then consistently, then powerfully. Now another curiosity loop begins: did the palace plan this transition? Experts believe yes, partly. Royal wardrobes are carefully designed to support state messaging. Color, texture, design, and occasion are all coordinated with symbolic precision. But what is even more interesting is that Leonor herself reportedly participates in these decisions. She has a growing sense of her public identity. She understands the responsibility she carries. She understands her visibility. She understands her future role. And she understands the power of color. But the red dress story expands beyond symbolism and strategy. It becomes a story of emotional transformation. Leonor's supporters often describe how proud they feel watching her step into events with increasing confidence and maturity. They remember her childhood appearances next to King Felipe VI and Queen Letizia. They remember her shy expressions, gentle movements, and soft voice. And now they see her standing strong in bright red, greeting diplomats, representing Spain abroad, addressing millions with clarity and confidence. To many, the red dress represents the moment they realized: she is no longer growing, she has grown. But still, there is another layer worth exploring: the impact on the royal family dynamic. Because every royal transformation creates tension, adjustment, and new roles within the family. King Felipe VI has guided Leonor carefully, preparing her step by step for responsibility. Queen Letizia has shaped her discipline, her public presence, and her education. The royal household has supported her public evolution. But Leonor's rise changes the emotional structure of the family. Every moment she leads, every moment she shines, every moment she becomes the center of royal attention, the monarchy subtly shifts around her. Red is not only a color of authority. It is a color of transition. A color that signals the passing of generations. A color that marks the beginning of her era. And yet, the most fascinating part is not the past but the future. Because analysts believe Leonor will continue building her public identity through signature visual elements, just as other great queens in history did. Queen Elizabeth II was known for her bright color palette. Queen Letizia is known for her sharp modern tailoring. Queen Margrethe of Denmark is known for her iconic artistic style. And now Princess Leonor is shaping her own legacy, not through copying tradition, but through forging her own red dominant royal presence. But what does red say about her leadership? This is where another curiosity loop unfolds. Red communicates courage. It communicates readiness. It communicates presence. It communicates emotional strength. In diplomacy, red is observed as the color of negotiation power. In politics, it is the color of clarity. In leadership psychology, it is the color of forward movement. When Leonor wears red, she appears more assertive, more confident, more sure of her place. And the world responds to it. Now imagine the next decade. Imagine Leonor representing Spain across Europe, Africa, the Americas, and Asia wearing her signature red. Imagine future ceremonies, national celebrations, state dinners, and diplomatic visits where her red dress becomes a global visual cue. A cue that signals Spain's next generation of monarchy. A cue that symbolizes continuity, stability, and renewal. A cue that identifies her instantly on the international stage. And here is the final twist in our curiosity chain. The lady with the red dress is not just a nickname. It is becoming a brand. A royal identity. A symbol carried in thousands of photographs, millions of views, and global headlines that echo her rise. The world recognizes it. The world reacts to it. The world shares it. The world watches for it. And every time she appears in her official red dress, the message becomes louder: the future queen is stepping into her era. She is stepping into her authority. She is stepping into her role. And the royal world is taking notice. Because Princess Leonor's red dress is not a moment. It is a movement. It is her color of leadership. It is her visual crown before the real one arrives. And this is only the beginning. If you enjoyed this documentary, like and subscribe to Future Queen Chronicle for more daily royal updates. The palace lights shimmer in the early morning stillness. Familiar, predictable, eternal. But here's what no one expected. The heir to this ancient crown is not delicate, not sheltered, not quiet. She is a warrior. And Princess Leonor of Asturias is rising faster, stronger, and more fearlessly than the royal world ever prepared for. They thought they knew her story. They were wrong. From the moment Leonor was born, Spain believed they understood her destiny. A future queen raised to maintain tradition. A symbol, a figure, a gentle continuation of the crown. But destiny rarely unfolds the way the world expects. Behind the curtains of etiquette and protocol, a very different heir was taking shape. One who would not simply inherit power, but redefine it. One who would step out of the shadow of monarchy and into a new era with a force no one predicted. Her childhood was filled with the softness of royal life, but beneath the elegance was discipline. Leonor learned posture, diplomacy, languages, but she also learned the weight of being the nation's hope. She saw the burden on her father's shoulders, the criticism her mother endured, the eyes that watched her even before she could speak. Responsibility wasn't just taught, she absorbed it. Quietly, deeply, completely. Yet early on, something set her apart. She wasn't content to merely follow rules, she wanted to understand them. She didn't just repeat lines, she questioned their meaning. And every time she asked why, her identity sharpened. A spark, a curiosity, a determination to carve her own path within the centuries-old structure she was born to uphold. Spain began to notice it gradually. A certain confidence in her speeches. A steadiness in her gaze. A sense that even though she was young, she carried something ancient within her. Something regal, something unshakable. But the world truly shifted the moment she made the decision that shocked Europe: she would join the military academy of Zaragoza. Not a symbolic visit, not a short-term course. Full training, full discipline, full sacrifice. The academy was not built for comfort, and certainly not for princesses. Yet Leonor stepped into that world willingly, boots laced, hair tied back, leaving behind silk gowns and state ceremonies for mud, sweat, exhaustion, and the harsh reality of military life. The first weeks were a test of spirit. Dawn drills, heavy packs, endless marching, physical strain that would break many. And she struggled, like every cadet. But she never quit. In fact, she embraced the hardship with a determination that silenced every whisper of doubt. Cadets who expected her to crumble found themselves inspired instead. She earned every nod, every salute, every ounce of respect. There was one moment, retold again and again among the cadets, that revealed her true nature. During a field endurance test under scorching heat, many slowed down. But Leonor, pushing through fatigue and trembling muscles, kept her pace. Not leading, not trying to shine, simply refusing to fall. When an officer later evaluated the session, he said only one sentence: "She has the heart of a warrior." That sentence spread through Spain in hours. And with it, everything changed. Suddenly, the world looked at Leonor differently. not as the princess in delicate dresses walking behind her parents, but as a future queen who had chosen the hardest path on purpose. A leader willing to earn her place. A young woman unafraid of challenge, pressure, or pain. But behind this rise was a deeper story, one that unfolded quietly within her family. The love between them was real, but so was the tension. Felipe, ever the steady monarch, believed in discipline and tradition. He wanted Leonor's preparation to follow precise steps, protocol, diplomacy, ceremony. Letizia, fierce and modern, wanted her to shape her own vision. She encouraged Leonor to think, to feel, to analyze the world as it truly is, not just as history demands. And Leonor stood between them, absorbing both worlds. The weight of a king's legacy on one shoulder, the expectations of a modern queen on the other. She loved them both deeply. But she also knew she could not be a copy of either. One evening, during a private family conversation, the tension surfaced. Discussions of her future obligations grew heavy, layered with love but shadowed by pressure. Leonor listened quietly before speaking, her voice gentle but resolute. "I will honor my duty," she said. "But I need the freedom to become the leader Spain needs, not the one tradition assumes." That moment stunned her parents. Not because she defied them, but because she spoke not as a daughter, but as a future monarch. That independence became the defining force of her rise. As Europe watched her military training, Spain watched something deeper, her transformation. Her posture sharpened, her voice gained gravity, her decisions carried confidence. She was no longer just preparing for a throne, she was preparing for a world in crisis. A world that demanded leaders with grit, empathy, and backbone. Her first major engagements after joining the academy revealed this evolution clearly. There was a moment during a speech where she paused, made deliberate eye contact with the audience, and delivered a message so steady it startled even seasoned politicians. She wasn't reading words, she was owning them. And in that moment, Spain saw their future. Not fragile, not uncertain, but forged. And yet, beyond the public eye, she fought her own internal battles. The pressure. The scrutiny, the endless comparisons to other young royals, rumors about friendships and relationships, judgment on every appearance, critics questioning her every move. But what the world didn't see were the quiet moments where she processed it all. Late nights studying, tears shed in silence after overwhelming weeks, writing in her private journal about her fear of failing her people. And then, rising each morning determined to try again. Her relationship with her sister Sophia played a critical role in these moments. Sophia was the one person who saw her without the weight of the crown. They talked, laughed, confided. Sophia reminded her that beneath the armor, she was still human. And Leonor needed that reminder more than anyone knew. Yet it was during a solitary moment, far from her family, that Leonor discovered the truth that would define the rest of her rise. During a brief break in training, she went on a lone walk through a quiet forest trail. The world felt distant, the air crisp, the path empty. She paused beneath a towering tree, tilted her head up, and whispered the question that had been haunting her: how do I lead without losing myself? The silence answered her softly. By being both. Both strong and compassionate, both disciplined and human, both warrior and heir. That revelation became her compass. And soon, the entire royal world began to feel the shift. Royal watchers noticed her increasing strength. Politicians respected her maturity. Other monarchies felt the tremor of a new force rising in Spain. She was not just a princess anymore. She was becoming an emblem of what a modern royal could be. And yet, with this rise came more curiosity loops. What challenges awaited her? Would she face political turbulence? Would she clash with tradition? Would her personal life remain private, or would it become the world's obsession? And how would she balance the demands of a crown with the desires of her own heart? Those questions will shape her future. But one truth is already clear. Princess Leonor's rise is redefining royalty itself. She is not the heir Spain expected. She is the heir Spain needs. A warrior, not of violence, but of resilience. A leader, not born from privilege, but forged through challenge. A queen, not because of lineage, but because of character. The royal world is watching her. The critics, the allies, the doubters. the admirers, they all sense the same thing: a transformation is unfolding. A shift in the monarchy. A new force rising. Princess Leonor of Asturias, the warrior heir, the fearless young woman shaking an entire royal world. Her rise is not a story of destiny alone, it is a story of courage. Of conviction. Of a heart that chooses duty but never forgets humanity. And this rise is only the beginning. In a world shaped by monarchs, traditions, and the quiet weight of destiny, one name rises with a new kind of power. Born not just into a crown, but into a legacy that demands courage, grace, and unwavering strength, emerges a young royal unlike any before her. She is the pulse of a nation, the promise of a new era, the future Queen of Spain. This is the story of Princess Leonor of Asturias, the heart of a princess, and the fearless spirit of a modern monarch. Like and subscribe to Future Queen Chronicle for more daily royal update. Stay till the end for full details and update. The palace stands quiet at dawn. A familiar image. Marble floors. Ancient halls. Centuries of expectation resting on one young woman's shoulders. But here's the truth no one expects. The heart of a princess is not made of glass. It's made of fire. And everything you thought you knew about Princess Leonor of Asturias is only the beginning. Because in a world that tries to shape her, she is learning to shape the world instead. The heir, the daughter, the symbol, the storm. She was never meant to blend into the background, though the world assumed she would. They expected a quiet royal girl, raised to smile, nod, and disappear behind protocol. But what they got instead was something Spain hadn't seen in generations, a modern monarch in the making with a will sharp enough to cut through centuries of tradition. A future queen with a calm voice but an unbreakable spine. A young woman who carries her country in her hands, and her courage in her heartbeat. From childhood, Leonor understood the weight of destiny before she had words to describe it. She could feel it in the eyes of the world watching her first steps, her first speeches, her first mistakes. She felt it in the constant hush of expectation that followed her everywhere, even into her dreams. But no one knew that beneath her disciplined posture lived a heart that refused to be confined. The heart of a girl who could feel fear and walk through it anyway. Her story begins long before she put on the uniform of the military academy. Before she mastered protocol. Before she learned the art of speaking without revealing too much. Her story begins with a question she carried quietly in her mind: what does it truly mean to be a princess? Not by title, but by character. The world believed her life was easy. But they did not see the silent pressure of being born into a legacy shaped by both glory and criticism. They didn't see the sleepless nights before public appearances. The countless rehearsals. The gentle, unspoken fear of not being enough for a nation that expected perfection. Yet each time the fear rose, something inside her rose higher. Spain watched her grow, but the world only began to pay attention when she joined the military academy. Boots on the ground, hair tied back, uniform fitted. No crown, no jewels, no royal cushion. Just Leonor, standing in line with hundreds of cadets, stripped of privilege, judged only by discipline and strength. For the first time, the world saw not a princess of ceremony but a princess of determination. And something changed. In Spain, in Europe, in her. There was a moment on the training field that became legendary among those who witnessed it. A grueling endurance drill left many cadets exhausted. Rain poured, boots sank into mud, the wind sliced across their faces. Some slowed, some stumbled, but Leonor kept running, not because she was stronger, not because she was trained differently, but because she refused to be the one who gave up. A commander later whispered, "She doesn't ask for the easy path. She asks for the path that proves she can handle the throne." That moment lit a spark. A curiosity loop that made the world ask, who is the real Leonor? The princess behind the speeches, the future queen behind the symbolism, the young woman behind the perfection. To answer that question, you must look at her family. The tension, the love, the quiet storms behind palace doors. Her father, King Felipe VI, carries the monarchy like a shield. Always composed, always thoughtful, he raised Leonor with discipline, honor, and a deep sense of duty. To him, leadership is service. Responsibility is non-negotiable. He taught her that dignity is not inherited, it's earned. And Leonor absorbed every lesson. But her mother, Queen Letizia, shaped a different part of her. The fire, the empathy, the sharp intuition. Letizia raised her daughters to understand the world, not just reign over it. She taught Leonor to listen, to analyze, to feel. She taught her that a queen should have a voice, not just a crown. Yet this guidance came with tension. Letizia wanted Leonor to be strong, but she also wanted to protect her. And sometimes, protection feels like control. This tension grew as Leonor approached adulthood. Felipe pushed her toward tradition. Letizia pushed her toward modernity. And Leonor had to find the narrow, fragile bridge between them. A bridge where she could still be herself. One evening, during a private family dinner, a disagreement rose. It started with a harmless comment about her future duties, but it grew into something heavier. Felipe wanted her to prepare for state affairs already set in motion. Letizia wanted her to experience more of the world before becoming confined by duty. And Leonor, caught in the middle, did something unexpected. She stood, looked both her parents in the eyes, and said softly, "I will honor the crown. But I need to choose how I grow into it." That moment changed everything. For the first time, the family saw not a girl, not a daughter, but a leader. Yet the crown does not come without conflict. Europe's royal families observed her rise with curiosity. Some admired her, some feared her influence, some doubted her, and some compared her to the young monarchs emerging around the continent. But Leonor refused to compete. Her only competition was who she was yesterday. Still, the comparisons followed her. Every move was placed beside another royal. Every gesture analyzed, every decision interpreted, and each comparison created a new curiosity loop. How will Leonor define herself in a world where tradition and modernity constantly collide? She answered that question not with words, but with actions. Her first major solo engagement abroad revealed something the world did not expect. She was not just trained, she was emotionally intelligent. She connected with people, she listened deeply, she made eye contact that felt personal, real, authentic. And suddenly, she wasn't just a princess of Spain, she became a symbol of what the modern monarchy could look like. But authenticity comes with its own challenges. And soon, the Spanish media began speculating about her personal life. Friendships, rumored relationships, her time studying abroad, whispered stories of love, heartbreak, and choices that could affect the monarchy's image. Through it all, Leonor kept her silence, not because she was hiding, but because she refused to let gossip write her story. Behind the scenes, she faced emotional battles no camera ever caught. Nights where she wondered if she could give Spain everything without losing herself. Mornings where she questioned if her voice mattered in a world where tradition often overshadows individuality. But there was a moment, quiet, intimate, that shifted her path forever. During a private royal retreat in the mountains, she hiked alone at dawn. Just her breath, the cold air, and the weight of her future pressing softly against her chest. She reached a cliff overlooking the valley, sunlight rising slowly, painting the horizon gold. And she whispered something to herself. "I want to reign with heart, not fear." That confession, spoken to no one, became the core of the monarch she is becoming. The fearless, the modern, the human. Her fearlessness is not loud. It doesn't roar. It stands steady. It whispers courage where others offer doubt. It leads with empathy rather than authority. And because of that, she faces a new challenge, balancing tradition with change. Spain, a nation with a complicated past, looks to her as a promise of renewal. A bridge between generations, a symbol of unity in a time where divisions grow loud. But Leonor does not want to be a symbol alone. She wants to be a servant of her people, a protector of culture, a voice for the new Spain rising. And this desire brings her greatest internal conflict yet. Can she be the queen the people want while still being the woman she wants to become? This question drives every choice, every step, every breath. Her public speeches reveal a new maturity, one that blends discipline with feeling, one that carries the tone of a stateswoman but the sincerity of a daughter of Spain. Each speech answers one curiosity loop, and opens another. Because the world keeps sensing there is more to her story. More strength, more vulnerability, more fire. And they're right. The heart of Princess Leonor is not divided. It is layered, brave, faithful to her country, loyal to her family, determined to carve her own identity. Her journey is far from over. Because the world has seen her courage on the training fields. They've seen her grace during state ceremonies. They've seen her intellect in diplomacy. But soon, they will see her leadership. The fearless in a modern royal monarchy. A young woman who knows that bravery is not the absence of fear, but the decision to rise above it. A princess whose heart beats louder than the expectations around her. A future queen who understands that her people don't just need a symbol, they need someone real. Her story continues with every challenge she faces. Every promise she makes. Every step she takes toward the throne. She is not rushing. She is not hesitating. She is evolving. And Spain is watching her transform in real time. Princess Leonor of Asturias. The heart that refuses to break. The courage that refuses to fade. The princess shaped by responsibility, but defined by her own fire. This is her journey. This is her becoming. This is the heart of a princess. A kingdom of old traditions. A crown forged in duty. A girl raised to one day become queen. And a secret she was never meant to carry. Everyone thinks they know how a princess lives. Perfect days. Perfect rules. Perfect expectations. But what if that image is a lie? What if behind the palace walls, the future queen kept a love so forbidden, so fragile, so dangerous, that Spain itself worked to bury it? Because this affair did not weaken her. It changed her. And the truth begins now. The story opens on a quiet morning in the royal palace of Oriente, where sunlight spills through the tall windows, warming the marble floors. Court staff move with the silence of people who know they serve history. And somewhere in the East Wing, behind one locked door, a young princess sits with a letter in her hands. A letter she has read 100 times but still cannot let go of. It is the only physical trace of the boy she once loved. The one she was forbidden to see. The one who taught her what freedom felt like. From the moment she turned 16, the burden of destiny fell heavily on her shoulders. Tutors trained her in diplomacy, media discipline, constitutional law. Her mother taught her poise. Her father taught her strength. But no one taught her how to be a girl with a heart that beat faster for someone who did not belong to her world. And that is where the first curiosity begins. Who was he? How did they meet? And how did a future queen fall in love with a boy who threatened the balance of an entire monarchy? It began far from the palace, during a private military training retreat. There, stripped of ceremony, titles, and royal formality, she was simply Leonor. And one evening, after a long day of drills, she saw him. A young soldier in training from a modest family. Calm eyes, steady hands, a presence that made the noise in her world suddenly quiet. Their conversations began as simple exchange. Discipline, duty, life. But then curiosity deepened into connection, and connection slipped into affection. Their first secret happened without planning. A shared walk in the dusk. A laugh she couldn't suppress. A moment of honesty that felt like stepping into the light after years in the dark. And from there, the forbidden began to grow. Each dawn brought them together. Each night pulled them apart. Yet the palace would never tolerate such a bond. A future queen could not love freely. Her heart was not her own. It belonged to Spain. Still, she kept him close. Hidden, protected. But secrets inside a palace do not stay quiet for long. One day, a royal advisor noticed the change in her. A softness in her gaze. A warmth in her voice. And suspicion began. That suspicion opened the second curiosity loop. How did the advisors uncover the truth? Who revealed the secret? And what did the palace do once they realized the princess's heart belonged to someone outside royal lineage? It happened during an unplanned visit. An advisor observed the soldier pass her a small folded note. It seemed innocent. But her smile was not. The palace machinery activated instantly. Discreet surveillance. Quiet questioning. Sudden changes to her schedule. She understood the message without needing words. Her love was no longer hers to protect. The monarchy had taken notice, and the price was coming. The first confrontation came from her mother. Not in anger, but in fear. Fear of scandal. Fear of instability. Fear of losing the girl she raised to the weight of the crown. Her father was different. Stern. Cold. bound by obligation. He saw the affair not as love, but as risk. And risk was not permitted for the heir to the throne. The soldier was transferred to another region within a week. No explanation, no goodbye, no final moment, only silence. For the princess, the silence became a storm. And this opens the third curiosity. Did she give up? Did she fight? Or did she find a way to hold on to him, even while the world tried to tear them apart? She fought quietly. She wrote to him, letters that never reached him. She sent messages that remained unread. She asked advisors for clarity, only to be met with polished lies. The palace had built a wall between them. A wall she could not break. Months passed, and she learned something heartbreaking. The soldier, pressured by royal officials, had resigned from training and disappeared from public record. Not because he wanted to, but because he was told that if he continued, he would damage her future. And he loved her enough to leave. But then comes the fourth curiosity. Did the story end there? Or did fate have a different plan? Fate, as always, works in silence. Years later, during a royal event, the princess stepped onto a balcony. Below her, among the crowd, she saw him. Not in uniform, not in the shadows, standing tall, changed by time, but unmistakably him. He looked up. She froze. And for one suspended moment, the monarchy, the cameras, the weight of her destiny disappeared. Only the two of them existed. Their eyes met, and everything they had buried resurfaced. But the moment shattered quickly. A guard approached her. The crowd shifted. And when she looked back, he was gone. This moment reignites the next curiosity. Did she chase the past? Did she confront those who took him away? Or did she accept that love and duty would forever war inside her? She did what a future queen would do. She used her voice, carefully, strategically. She demanded more autonomy in her personal life. She requested time away from official engagements. She stepped into adulthood with a quieter rebellion, building small spaces of freedom inside the structure designed to control her. But destiny remained unmovable. She could not marry freely. She could not pursue the life of her heart. The crown demanded sacrifice. And she understood what every royal heir eventually learns. Love is the first thing the throne takes from you. Yet even now, she keeps one memory alive. A secret place she visits sometimes, a hidden garden behind the palace. Beneath an old tree stands a stone bench. Carved faintly into its surface are two initials. Hers. And his. The only trace of a love that almost was. And that brings us to the final curiosity. Did she truly lose him forever? Or is their story still unfolding in the shadows of a monarchy that guards its secrets more tightly than its crown? No one knows. Not even the palace insiders. Because some secrets, the most human ones, the most fragile ones, live only in the heart of the princess who was born to rule, but never allowed to love freely. And perhaps that is the greatest truth of all. A princess can be destined for a throne, yet still haunted by the one person she was never allowed to keep. If you want, I can expand this into a full cinematic sequel, a part 2, or a parallel story from the soldier's perspective. "48 hours. That's all that stands between Spain and a royal moment no one saw coming. A moment wrapped in secrecy, tension, and emotion. A moment that places Princess Leonor directly in the global spotlight. And as the countdown begins, one thing is certain, what's about to happen will change everything. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to Future Queen Chronicle for more daily royal update. Everyone thinks they know what's coming. A routine appearance. A polished princess. Another elegant moment for Spain's future queen. But no, something has shifted. Quietly, suddenly, dramatically. And in 48 hours, the world will see a side of Princess Leonor no one expected. A choice no one predicted. A moment that could redefine the Spanish monarchy itself. For months, royal watchers believed this upcoming event would follow the usual pattern: ceremony, duty, grace. But beneath the calm surface of Zarzuela Palace, preparations have taken a different tone. There is urgency, there is emotion, and there are whispers that this moment will test not just Leonor's training, but her heart. At 18, Leonor is already carrying responsibilities that most adults never face. She has navigated speeches, state commitments, military training, and the immense pressure of a future crown. Yet this particular event, this one happening in 48 hours, feels heavier. More personal. And those closest to her can sense it. Why? Because this event isn't simply another royal duty. It's a crossroads. The palace corridors buzz quietly with staff adjusting plans at the last minute. Advisors move with practiced calm, though their eyes reveal something more, anticipation mixed with tension. Even Queen Letizia has been unusually reflective, watching her daughter with both pride and concern. She sees the weight Leonor carries. She sees the decisions forming behind her daughter's serene expression. And she knows, every queen before her has faced a defining moment. This one may be Leonor's. Leonor herself tries to maintain her steady composure. But at night, in the privacy of her room, she rehearses her lines, not because she doesn't know them, but because she understands the significance. This event symbolizes the transition from prepared heiress to acting leader. The world will be watching not just what she says, but what she reveals. As dawn rises over Madrid, Leonor begins her day earlier than usual. Her schedule is carefully structured, but something in her pace is different. She is almost too quiet. Focused. Determined. She reviews briefing documents, notes from advisors, even historical records of past heirs who faced similar milestones. She wants to be perfect. But perfection isn't what this moment demands. Authenticity is. And authenticity requires courage. Meanwhile, inside the palace, King Felipe observes his daughter from a distance. He recognizes the familiar resolve, the same determination he once had before his own defining moments. And though he tries to remain neutral, fatherly pride betrays him. He knows Leonor is ready. Yet he also knows that readiness doesn't remove fear. As the hours pass, curiosity grows across Spain. Journalists, royal analysts, and global audiences begin speculating. Why this sudden secrecy? Why are security protocols being reinforced? Why are palace spokespeople refusing to comment? Every question answered creates another one. Every clue sparks more intrigue. Leonor's upcoming appearance is being described as historic, unexpected, potentially transformative. But no one knows why. Not fully. Not yet. Only the palace does. And they are guarding the truth with careful silence. By the next morning, the tension is palpable. Social media bursts with theories. Some insist Leonor is preparing to deliver a message that will surprise the entire nation. Others claim this may involve a shift in her future responsibilities. A few even whisper that emotion, deep, heartfelt emotion, will be at the core of her message. And perhaps, they're not wrong. Back inside Zarzuela, Queen Letizia asks her daughter a simple question. Are you certain this is what you want to do? Leonor's answer is steady. Yes. Not a forced yes. Not an uncertain yes. A strong one. This moment matters to her. Personally, emotionally, historically. The hours continue ticking down. Leonor meets privately with King Felipe. Their conversation is quiet, almost solemn. No cameras. No advisors. Just a father and his daughter, the king and his future queen. Witnesses say their discussion lasted longer than expected. And when Leonor emerged, her eyes carried something deeper, clarity. This is her path, her voice, her moment. As preparations intensify, the palace staff finalizes every detail. The hall layout, the lighting, the ceremonial protocols, the security choreography. Everything must be perfect. Not for appearance, but because this moment could resonate far beyond Spain. Night falls again, now only 24 hours remain. Leonor retreats briefly to the palace gardens, where she often goes when she needs grounding. The gentle autumn breeze brushes against her face, the same breeze that carried her childhood laughter through these grounds. She closes her eyes and remembers the stories her parents told her. The duty to serve, the responsibility to lead, the privilege of representing an entire nation. But she also remembers her own dreams, her own hopes, the life she wishes to build. This event, happening so soon, bridges those two worlds. Morning arrives once more. Now less than a day remains. Spain awakes buzzing with anticipation. News outlets run constant coverage, counting down the hours. Analysts revisit Leonor's past speeches, searching for hints about what she might reveal. Supporters express admiration, critics express doubt, but all agree, something important is coming. Leonor, meanwhile, begins her final preparations. Her outfit is carefully selected, symbolic, elegant, subtly powerful. Her speech, memorized, but still carried in her hand, is revised one last time. She removes a sentence, adds another, adjusts the tone. Every word matters. Queen Letizia watches from the doorway, her eyes soft. She understands the weight Leonor carries. She understands the sacrifices. And she knows her daughter is stepping into a new level of visibility, responsibility, and emotional exposure. Soon, King Felipe arrives to escort Leonor to her final briefing. They walk side by side, equal steps, equal height, equal presence. The symbolism is not lost on anyone who sees them. Spain's present, Spain's future, together. The palace spokesperson prepares to address the media, but refuses to spoil the moment. The official statement is brief. Her Royal Highness will make an appearance of significant importance. Details will be provided at the event. No elaboration, no explanation, just mystery. And mystery fuels the world's anticipation. The hours grow shorter. 14, 10, 7. Each hour adds another layer of emotion, another wave of speculation. As night settles once again, Leonor sits alone in her room. The same room where she has spent countless nights studying, preparing, dreaming. She takes a breath, then another. She knows the magnitude of what awaits her. She knows the eyes of the world will be on her. And yet, she feels ready. Ready not because she is fearless, but because she has chosen courage over fear. In 48 hours, a moment arrives that will reveal her heart, her direction, her identity as the future Queen of Spain. A moment that promises to surprise, to move, to define. And when she finally steps out before the cameras, when she speaks the words she has held close to her chest, the world will understand why this event was guarded so carefully. Why it carries so much weight. Why it matters. Because this moment isn't just about duty. It's about destiny. It's about growth. It's about emotion. It's about the young woman who will one day shape a nation. And in just hours, she will show the world exactly who she is becoming. Welcome to a world where royal truths, hidden protocols, and European history come alive. This is your daily gateway into Princess Leonor's journey, the Spanish monarchy and royal dramas. In today's video we dive into an ever blast, when Princess Leonor fell in love for the first time. Stay till the end for full details. Like and subscribe to Future Queen Chronicle for more daily royal update. Before the world knew her as the future queen, before the crown shaped her every step, there was a single moment that changed everything. A moment whispered in silence, hidden from cameras, born from a feeling she never expected. The palace wakes early. Protocol hums like a quiet engine. Cameras wait. Expectations hover in the hallways like invisible portraits. Everyone assumes they know her story, her destiny, her path. But they don't. Because one morning, without warning, everything expected of her fractured. Because Princess Leonor fell in love for the very first time. No announcement, no permission, no royal plan, just a moment that changed everything. And here is the part no one saw coming. The love didn't arrive in a ballroom, or at a gala, or wrapped in royal silk. It arrived quietly, almost shyly, and it arrived in a way that challenged the monarchy more than any political storm. This is the story of that moment. A story that reshaped her heart, her family, and the future she was born to carry. The first time she felt it, she didn't even know it was love. She only knew the room shifted, just slightly, as if the air remembered something before she did. It happened at the Royal Military Academy, on a day that seemed ordinary. The kind of day nobody would write about. The kind of day destiny uses precisely because no one is paying attention. She noticed him before she admitted she noticed him. He wasn't royal. He wasn't polished. He wasn't a political choice or a dynastic calculation. He simply carried himself with a quiet steadiness that contrasted her world of scrutiny and expectation. He held a book under his arm, worn at the edges, and that single detail told her more about him than any formal introduction ever could. Their first exchange was brief. Almost too brief to matter. But human hearts take notes long before the mind admits it. He greeted her with a nod. She answered with an almost invisible smile. And somewhere beneath the surface of protocol, something warm began to grow. Uninvited, uncontrolled, unmistakable, Leonor tried to brush it away. She knew what love meant for someone like her. Love was never just love. It was duty, headlines, opinion polls, generational pressure wrapped in ceremonial gold. She could not afford distraction, and certainly not in the form of someone who lived outside the royal blueprint. Yet the feeling persisted. Days passed, then weeks, each interaction small but significant. Each glance a new puzzle piece. Each conversation a step closer to something she wasn't ready to name. He listened to her with an attentiveness she rarely received. Not to the title, not to the crown, not to the future queen. But to her, just her. And that was the danger. Because when a heart used to armor suddenly feels seen, it becomes vulnerable in the most beautiful and terrifying ways. The queen noticed first. Mothers always do. Leonor sat at dinner quieter than usual, her eyes softer, her smile caught in the middle of some unspoken thought. Queen Letizia studied her daughter the way only a mother could, reading the silent spaces between breaths. Later, when they were alone, the queen asked her directly, "Leonor, is there someone?" Leonor hesitated. The truth lived at the edge of her lips, but she wasn't ready to let it out. Not yet. Not while it was still delicate, still forming, still hers. "It's nothing," she said. But Queen Letizia heard the tremble beneath the words. And that tremble told her everything. Love, even royal love, has a way of echoing beyond the person who feels it. As Leonor's feelings deepened, the world around her tightened. Advisors whispered about responsibility. Journalists speculated. Palace aides observed her movements with renewed precision. And although no one knew the truth, the energy around her shifted. Curiosity always arrives before confirmation. Meanwhile, her heart carried its own storm. She found herself thinking of him during long ceremonies, during official briefings, during moments when the weight of the crown pressed too heavily against her shoulders. Love gave her refuge, but also fear. What if it wasn't real? What if it was too real? What if the palace pushed back? What if he walked away? Every new answer opened a deeper question. Every question tightened the emotional knot in her chest. Their first meaningful conversation happened under a drizzle of evening light. They were both exhausted from training, dust on their uniforms, sweat on their brows, and a trace of laughter in the air. He asked her what she feared most about becoming queen. She didn't expect the question. No one ever asked her that. People asked what she planned, what she believed, what she represented. Not what she feared. She answered honestly. "I'm afraid of losing myself," she said. He nodded, looking at her with a sincerity that felt like shelter. "You won't," he said. "Not if you stay human." That sentence stayed with her. It unfolded gently through her mind for weeks. It was the first time someone had reminded her she was allowed to be something other than a symbol. The emotional bond between them grew slowly, like dawn light stretching across a quiet landscape. Their friendship deepened into something unmistakably tender. Leonor still denied it to herself, but her heart was already convinced. The tension reached the palace before she did. King Felipe sensed it next. Not through words, but through the shift in her routines. The way she lingered in thought. The new tone in her voice. The patterns that had anchored her for years were suddenly changed by something intangible. He understood the risk. Royal love is never just an emotion, it is a political earthquake waiting for the wrong step. He knew the world would react. He knew the scrutiny would be merciless. He knew his daughter's heart could be both her strength and her vulnerability. When he finally asked her, his voice carried the weight of both a king and a father. "Leonor, is there something you want to tell me?" And she realized the truth could no longer stay hidden. She confessed everything, the small moments, the unexpected connection, the quiet warmth, the fear she tried to bury. King Felipe listened without interrupting. Every word stripped away the shield she had carried all her life. When she finished, she braced herself for disappointment. But instead, he breathed deeply and said something she would never forget. "You were my daughter before you were my successor. And even future queens are allowed a first love." His acceptance didn't erase the complications. But it gave her courage. With that courage came a new question: what now? Love had bloomed, but would it survive the crown? Could a relationship born in quiet moments withstand the noise of the world? Could her heart and her duty coexist, or would one have to break? She returned to him with her truth. No titles, no expectations, no palace walls, just honesty. "I don't know where this leads," she said, "but I want to find out." "If you do." He answered, not with a grand declaration, but with the kind of sincerity that reshapes destinies. "I'm here. Whatever this becomes, I'm here." That was the moment. The unplanned, unstoppable, unforgettable moment when Princess Leonor fell in love for the very first time. Not because it was perfect. Not because it was easy. But because it was real. Love does not ask permission. It arrives. It transforms. It tests every corner of a life built on duty. For Leonor, it opened a new chapter. A chapter filled with hope, complexity, pressure, warmth, and the fragile courage that comes with first love. A chapter that left her wondering where emotion meets legacy, and how a young woman destined for the throne learns to balance the weight of a crown with the voice of her own heart. And that balance would shape everything that came after. Because a future queen can be trained. A leader can be prepared. But a heart falling in love for the very first time writes its own unpredictable story. And hers had just begun. Leonor's speech that left the nation silent. Breaking news from Madrid. Moments ago, Princess Leonor delivered a speech that has already shaken Spain's political and royal landscapes. Reporters froze. Officials stood stunned. And the nation went silent. This was not routine. This was not symbolic. This was a seismic moment from Spain's future queen. The event was expected to be calm, controlled, ceremonial. A typical royal appearance. Nothing more. But the energy shifted the second Leonor stepped onto the stage. Her expression held something sharper. Her steps carried purpose. Even the cameras seemed to lean closer, sensing a moment crackling underneath the surface. The audience expected a polite message. Instead, they received a declaration. Leonor began quietly, too quietly. Journalists leaned forward, straining to hear her first words. Then, it happened. She addressed the nation with a clarity that cut through the hall. She spoke about duty, not the ceremonial kind, The real kind, the kind that binds a leader to a country. She acknowledged the pressures surrounding her life. The scrutiny, the expectations, the doubts. Then she said the line now echoing across Spain. If Spain needs courage, I will be the first to stand. Gasps. Actual gasps. This was not the language of a sheltered princess. This was the voice of a leader emerging under blinding lights and heavier shadows. What happened next was even more unexpected. Leonor paused. Just one breath. But it carried the weight of the entire monarchy. Then she spoke about her parents. Not as royalty, but as people preparing her to walk into a world where she must stand alone. Her tone shifted. A thin layer of emotion cracked through the composure. A tremor, brief but unmistakable. It stunned the room. You could hear the silence. A silence thick enough to feel. Her next words came slow, deliberate, controlled. I know what Spain expects. And I am ready. That was the moment everything changed. When she stepped back from the podium, nothing happened at first. No applause. No movement. Just shock. Then, one by one, people rose. A standing ovation that started hesitantly. Then thundered through the hall like a wave. Across Spain and beyond, the response exploded. Newsrooms scrambled. Commentators dissected every sentence. Royal analysts called it the defining moment of her generation. Even critics admitted, Leonor had crossed a threshold no one expected her to cross today. For millions watching online, it felt like witnessing history being carved in real time. This was not a speech. It was a statement of intent. Leonor signaled that she understands the world she is inheriting, a world demanding transparency, strength, humanity, and resilience. A world that no longer accepts royalty as figureheads, but as active, accountable leaders. And she stepped into that expectation without hesitation. Her message was unmistakable. She is ready for the responsibility. Ready for the criticism. Ready for the crown, when the time comes. The nation that fell silent did so for a reason. They weren't just listening. They were witnessing transformation. Tonight, Spain stands on the edge of something new. A shift. A beginning. Princess Leonor's speech was more than a moment. It was a signal. A declaration. A step into a future where she is no longer just the heir, but the emerging voice of a generation. And that is why Spain fell silent today. In this imagined 2025 royal chapter, everything seemed predictable. Royal ceremonies followed tradition, protocol guided every step, history felt set in stone. But then came the moment no one expected. Because the wedding of Princess Leonor of Spain didn't just follow tradition, it transformed it. And the world is still asking the same question: how did a single ceremony rewrite global bridal trends in one unforgettable day? From the very first whisper of her engagement, anticipation surged across continents. Leonor, the future Queen of Spain, had always carried a quiet strength. A dignity beyond her years. Yet when news of her royal wedding broke, it wasn't just a national celebration. It became a global phenomenon. People didn't want details. They wanted meaning. They wanted symbolism. They wanted to understand how this young princess would merge centuries of monarchy with a modern love story grounded in authenticity. But the first major shock came long before the vows. When the palace released the initial design sketches of her gown, experts were stunned. It wasn't the lace-heavy silhouette people expected. It wasn't a replica of Queen Letitia's. It wasn't even reminiscent of the traditional Spanish mantilla. Instead, the dress carried something deeper, an unexpected fusion of bold minimalism with delicate ancestral motifs. It hinted at a story, a legacy, a quiet rebellion woven in silk. Immediately, questions erupted. Why choose simplicity when tradition called for grandeur? Why a modern cut when the world expected a royal spectacle? Why now, at the very moment the world watched most closely? But answers would unfold slowly, one breathtaking detail at a time. When the day of the ceremony arrived, Madrid transformed into a living tapestry of emotion. Streets filled with families waving Spanish flags. International media broadcast every moment. Fashion houses held their breath. Royal watchers around the world speculated what unprecedented element the princess had prepared. And then came the next surprise. Leonor stepped out of the car. And the world fell silent. Her gown shimmered with an almost ethereal softness, crafted with eco-conscious Spanish silk, embroidered with threads inspired by 13th-century royal patterns, yet shaped into a sleek, modern silhouette. And there, subtly placed across the bodice, were three symbolic motifs: unity, legacy, and renewal. The kind of symbolism that a future monarch would choose deliberately, courageously, lovingly. Fashion analysts called it a turning point. Not because it was extravagant, but because it was purposeful. It carried story over spectacle, meaning over excess. And before the ceremony even began, bridal designers from Denmark to Los Angeles were already sketching reinterpretations. Spain, once admired for its heritage, had suddenly become the epicenter of modern bridal influence. But the dress wasn't the only detail shifting global trends. Next came the procession. Rather than a long, dramatic walk accompanied by an ocean of attendants, Leonor made a choice rooted in emotion. She entered with a quiet grace, accompanied only by her parents, King Felipe and Queen Letizia, and her sister, Princess Sofia. A symbolic gesture showing the unity of a family that had navigated pressures, expectations, and the weight of monarchy together. It was intimate. It was vulnerable. And it sent a powerful message. The royal family was presenting itself not as untouchable, but as human. This ignited a new global trend instantly: smaller, emotionally driven bridal entourages. Weddings emphasizing closeness, not grandeur. Connections, not protocols. And then came the ceremony itself. Held inside Madrid's Almudena Cathedral, the atmosphere was almost cinematic. Rays of sunlight filtered through stained glass, creating a golden aura around the couple as they took their place before the altar. Every movement felt meaningful. Every gesture silently narrated their journey. As the vows began, curiosity swelled. Would Leonor follow the traditional royal script? Or would she dare to redefine the words spoken by monarchs before her? Once again, she chose love over expectation. Her vows were personal, gentle, resolute. She spoke of partnership, duty, and devotion, not only as a future queen, but as a woman choosing a life built on respect and understanding. The sincerity in her voice changed the entire tone of the ceremony. It set off yet another trend: deeply personal vows in formal weddings, blending tradition with individuality. But then came the moment that truly stunned the world. After the exchange of rings, crafted from repurposed royal gold, a unique element unfolded. A quiet pause. A symbolic gesture seldom seen in royal weddings. The couple, instead of turning immediately to the crowd, shared a private nod, a small, warm smile. It was a glimpse of their bond, a simple moment of unguarded love. And for millions watching, that human touch became the highlight of the ceremony. Photographers captured it instantly. Fashion critics praised it. Social media erupted with admiration. Couples everywhere began incorporating similar moments, unscripted pauses of connection, hidden in the most formal parts of their weddings. But the global impact didn't end there. When Leonor stepped out of the cathedral, sunlight illuminated the long veil floating behind her, a veil embroidered with the royal family's historical symbols, subtly integrated into a modern minimalist design. This fusion ignited a bridal trend overnight, veils that tell a story. Not decorative, not extravagant, but meaningful. Then came her bouquet, a mix of classic Spanish orange blossoms with new additions representing unity across cultures. Florists around the world adopted the blend within hours, calling it the Leonor Symbolism Bouquet. Still, the public wasn't prepared for yet another transformation. At the reception, Leonor made her final bridal reveal, a second gown. Instead of something flashy or dramatically different, she chose a soft, elegant evening dress, still Spanish-made, still symbolic, still reflective of her personality. It represented comfort, authenticity, and emotional presence over spectacle. Again, designers worldwide took immediate inspiration. Throughout the celebration, the camera frequently captured moments between Leonor and her family, her father's proud smile, her mother's quiet emotion, her sister's supportive glances. Each moment created an emotional resonance that viewers felt deeply. It wasn't just a royal wedding. It was the evolution of a monarchy through the lens of love and humanity. And as the evening progressed, curiosity continued to rise. What did the guests say? How did the international royals react? What fashion choices stood out? What new traditions were quietly born that night? Royal families from Europe and beyond marveled at how naturally Leonor balanced tradition with modernity. Fashion icons praised her restraint. Cultural historians noted the symbolism woven into every element. And political analysts observed how the event strengthened Spain's international image through the power of soft diplomacy. Each moment answered one question while creating another, pulling the world deeper into the narrative, one emotional revelation at a time. But perhaps the most defining moment occurred near the end of the night. Stepping onto the balcony of the royal palace with her new husband, Leonor waved to the crowds below. But what caught everyone's attention wasn't the grandeur, it was the emotion in her expression. A future queen stepping into her destiny with strength, humility, and love. The cheers that rose from the crowd echoed across the city, marking not just a wedding, but the beginning of an era. An era shaped by a monarch who chose authenticity over spectacle, purpose over protocol, and connection over perfection. And that is why the royal wedding of 2025 didn't merely follow trends, it created them. Bridal fashion shifted. Ceremony structures evolved. Symbolism became a cornerstone of design. And Spain emerged as a global leader in modern wedding aesthetics. What began as a day of personal joy became a blueprint for a new generation of brides. A moment where love, monarchy, and meaning collided into a beautifully transformative experience. And the world is still enchanted by the question, what other traditions will Princess Leonor reshape as she steps closer to the throne? Because if her wedding was any indication, the future of Spain, and the future of royal storytelling, has never been more captivating. The fairy tale of Spain sparkles, Princess Leonor's grace and the power of true love. Once upon a time, Spain prepared for duty. A crown, a future queen, a destiny written by history itself. But no one expected what came next. Because behind the royal walls, love found its way in. And it changed everything. Princess Leonor, the girl who grew into a symbol. The daughter of King Felipe VI and Queen Letizia. A future monarch who carries centuries of legacy in her smile. Yet beyond her royal duties, beyond the shining medals and elegant gowns, lies a heart, young, kind, and full of dreams. A heart that dares to feel what every young woman feels. The pull of love, the power of emotion, the whisper of destiny calling from beyond the palace gates. From the moment Leonor stepped into the public eye, the world saw grace. But those close to her saw something deeper, an old soul, wrapped in quiet strength. As a child, she was reserved, watching more than she spoke. Observing, learning, preparing. Every royal engagement polished her presence, every challenge shaped her calm. Yet, through all the discipline, one question lingered: could love ever belong to a princess whose life was never fully her own? Spain's young heiress wasn't just growing into her crown, she was growing into herself. And that journey began not in the spotlight, but in the silence between expectations. The love she sought wasn't reckless or forbidden, it was pure, like sunlight breaking through stained glass. It began during her studies abroad, when she met a young man whose presence was quiet but steady. Not a prince, not a politician's son, just someone who saw her not as the future queen of Spain, but as Leonor, the girl who loved poetry, music, and the scent of the ocean at dawn. They met in passing. A shared smile, a conversation about art, a moment of honesty that pierced through the layers of protocol. For the first time, Leonor felt seen, not as royalty, but as a person. But love in a royal life is never simple. Every glance, every whisper becomes a headline. Every emotion becomes speculation. And in the corridors of the Zarzuela Palace, love is both a treasure and a test. Her parents knew this too well. King Felipe and Queen Letizia once walked their own path of love against expectation. Felipe, a king in waiting, fell for a journalist, an independent woman, divorced, self-made. Their story, once controversial, became the foundation of modern Spanish monarchy. Leonor grew up in that love. It shaped her, taught her that true love requires courage, and that even a crown must bow to the heart. So when Leonor's feelings began to grow, she faced a choice. Follow the heart, or follow the crown. But the two, in her story, might not be opposites. Because Leonor believes in a new kind of monarchy, one led by humanity. She believes that love, far from weakness, is power itself. The young man who caught her heart shared that vision. He admired her not for her title, but for her ideals, her kindness, her strength, her empathy for others. Together, they spoke of service, of change, of the kind of world they wanted to build. And though their bond remained private, their connection inspired those around them. At royal events, Leonor began to glow differently. Not the rehearsed smile of duty, but the quiet warmth of someone who knows she is loved. Cameras noticed. So did her sister, Infanta Sofia, who often teased her in private, whispering, "The Queen of Hearts has arrived." But in love, trials always come. Rumors spread. The press speculated. Was it true? Was the future queen in love with a commoner? Could Spain accept such a love story? For Leonor, the answer wasn't in approval, it was in integrity. She stayed composed, her public image steady, but her private resolve stronger than ever. In moments of solitude, Leonor often wrote in her journals. About her duties. About Spain. About love that does not demand to be public, yet shapes who she is in private. Those who've seen her notes say she writes with deep thought, reflecting her belief that love is service in its purest form, to care, to uplift, to protect. Every chapter of Leonor's life reflects balance, the balance between emotion and duty, between crown and heart. When she joined the Spanish armed forces, many expected the steel of discipline. But they also saw the compassion in her leadership, the empathy in her eyes. Those qualities didn't come from tradition, they came from love. From understanding what it means to lead with humanity. In her public speeches, there are moments when her voice trembles, not from fear, but from feeling. Words like unity, respect, and hope come alive because she means them. And though she speaks as a royal, her tone reveals something more, a woman who wants to make her country proud while staying true to herself. As Leonor matures into her role, Spain watches not just a future queen, but a new symbol of grace, one that blends duty with warmth, authority with empathy. And behind that grace, love remains her compass. The power of true love isn't about romance alone, it's about authenticity. About choosing to live fully, even when the world expects perfection. Leonor's story reminds us that a crown cannot silence the heart. It can only magnify what's already inside. In her love, quiet though it remains, Spain finds reflection. A story not of scandal, but of sincerity. Not of rebellion, but of evolution. Each time Leonor steps forward, in military training, public service, or global engagements, the world sees more than a royal figure. They see a young woman walking a fine line between the past and the future. Every bow, every salute, every smile carries both the weight of history and the whisper of her heart. And somewhere in the background, the young man who once shared a quiet conversation about art still stands, proud and patient, knowing that love does not always need to be seen to be real. Sometimes, it simply needs to be felt, and lived with grace. The fairy tale of Spain isn't about glass slippers or magic carriages. It's about courage. About the bravery to love in silence, to lead with feeling, to shine with sincerity. Princess Leonor's grace isn't just in her poise, it's in her ability to balance the world's expectations with the quiet power of her own heart. As she prepares for the throne, she carries with her not just royal blood, but royal humanity. A kind of love that doesn't belong to fantasy, but to truth. The love of a daughter, a sister, a woman, and one day, a queen who will reign not only with wisdom, but with heart. Because in the end, love is not a distraction from duty. For Leonor, it is the source of it. The fairy tale of Spain continues, not written in legend, but in the living heart of a princess who believes in the power of true love. And that, perhaps, is the greatest story Spain will ever tell.